Certainly. Here's the translated text with the required formatting and tense adjustments. A robin with a diamond crown. A royal emblem? Looking through the small window at the back of the carriage, the young woman saw the robin emblem engraved on the front of the luxury carriage, and her face darkened. The cheerful smile with a hint of slyness on her face instantly transformed into boundless anger as a storm approached. Behind us, it should be Prince Joshua's carriage. Watching the overturned freight carriages being shoved off the road and the small merchants who hurriedly picked up their goods with angry yet resigned faces, the middle-aged noblewoman's expression also turned a bit sour. Though equally displeased with the prince's behavior, upon seeing the anger growing deeper in the young woman's eyes, she hurriedly warned, "Princess Veronica, you went out in private today without a retinue, and not even the guard troops. If you go out now, not only will you disrupt the Duke of Lionheart's investiture ceremony, but if the rebels find out you are here, it will definitely cause a major uproar." I know." She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The lively and cheerful young girl was completely gone, returning to her usual solemn and dignified demeanor. After glancing again at the luxury carriage behind her, the young woman, or rather, Princess Veronica, withdrew her gaze, her expression calm as she instructed, "Drive the carriage off the road and let Joshua's carriage pass first. After the investiture ceremony ends, have someone write a pamphlet from the small merchant's perspective about today's events and make it sound as tragic as possible." The middle-aged noblewoman was slightly startled upon hearing this and asked in confusion, "Are you planning to complain to your majesty with the pamphlet and ask him to restrain Prince Joshua's behavior?" "No, in past financial disputes with the nobles, my father owed Joshua's mother too much, so he was overly indulgent towards him. Even if he knew Joshua did such things, he would at most just scold him with words." The princess shook her head, gazing at the rapidly passing luxury carriage, and said blandly, "If you truly want to solve the problem, this pamphlet should be given to the lower house, to those members who are always finding faults with me. Give them the opportunity to make an issue of it. No matter how much I advise Joshua, it would be useless. Only when the entire royal family's reputation is thoroughly damaged and substantial interests are forcibly taken away will my father's slap reach Joshua's face, making him realize what should and shouldn't be done. Your Highness, you truly are." After hearing the princess's words, the middle-aged noblewoman couldn't help but chuckle, and then shook her head as she glanced at the distant luxury carriage. Given your majesty's temperament, Prince Joshua is in for a tough time. If you are compelled by those members to yield something, Prince Joshua probably won't have a carriage to ride for half a year. Would just getting a slap and not having a carriage to ride for half a year be considered tough? Upon hearing the noblewoman's words, the princess didn't speak but looked through the window at the dozens of overturned carriages on the roadside and the scattered cargo smashed on the road. A light rain had just fallen the night before, and even on meticulously repaired paths like Redwood Avenue, the roadside could not avoid being muddy, with ponds of water here and there. Among the goods transported by these small merchants, the porcelain and lamps directly shattered need no mention. Things like coal, flour, and spices, they can't come into contact with water either. The velvet ribbons and similar items meant for decorating the investiture ceremony that got stained with mud wouldn't be accepted by the Ryan family, meaning they'd certainly made the trip for nothing. Moreover, the Charles department store, in order to protect itself, had been forced into low-price sales for more than half a month already, leaving small merchants struggling. Supplying the Ryan family's investiture ceremony was a rare opportunity for them. If I guess correctly, many of them owe money on their goods or even took out loans, and now Joshua's guards overturned everything onto the roadside. If I ignore this, more than half of these carriage owners might go bankrupt. Those who are now crying while gathering goods on the roadside might soon end up in the capital city's slums. Forget it. I shall not attend the investiture ceremony. After glancing at the ribbons in the mud and the crying merchants by the roadside, the princess couldn't help but shake her head in resignation and waved her hand dismissively. "Let's go, we'll find Joshua's guard troops first and make him compensate these people. Otherwise, Someone among them might. Make way. Move aside quickly. How did the freight wagon get onto the fast road? Get it off now. Push them aside. The Duke's carriage is behind us, and we're delaying the investiture ceremony's time. Hearing the commotion coming from behind, the princess's brow furrowed again. She leaned out of the window and looked back. This time, the newly arrived carriage, pulled by 8 tall and vigorous char horses, nearly occupied the entire 10-meter-wide road. Its opulence surpassed Joshua's carriage. The mahogany carriage engraved with a crowned lion crest was decorated with gilded bronze nails, inset with contiguous jewels, and the white steel wheels bore beast-like imprints, leaving lion paw print patterns on the ground. Every aspect was crafted to perfection within the regulations. The Duke of Lionheart's carriage? Troublesome. Seeing the road thrown into chaos yet again, the princess sighed inwardly. To avoid that scoundrel Joshua, most of the carriages in front had moved off the fast lanes. Many had just barely returned to the road, and restoring order would take at least 12 to 13 minutes, making it impossible to evade again in time. As for the new Duke of Lionheart, if he wanted to reach Ryan Manor within the usual time, he might have to mimic that scoundrel Joshua and forcibly shove these carriages aside, staining yet another batch of goods. Stop where you are. Just as the princess hesitated over whether to reveal her identity and discuss with the Duke to buy some time for these small merchants, a head suddenly popped out of the carriage window, halting the guard preparing to overturn the carriages. Why rush people? Isn't this road wide enough? Looking at the half-occupied fast lane and estimating the width of his own gaudy carriage, realizing it indeed wasn't quite enough, Leon silently swallowed his words and turned to glare at the perspiring, richly dressed old man beside him, speaking discontentedly. I said there's no need to take the carriage. Walking wouldn't take long. It's just that you all fuss too much, making me return for this whole grand show. Look, now we're blocked. Feeling stifled by Leon's words but having no real recourse, the previous Duke's old butler could only smile and persuade. Duke, riding the Lionheart car to the manor is a tradition of our Ryan family and part of the investiture ceremony. Please endure it a bit longer. Just a little longer. Endure? Why should I endure anything? I don't even want the Duke's title, so why should I care about your crappy traditions? With utter disgust, Leon glanced at himself in the mirror, seeing his face painted ghostly white, and the usually polite Leon couldn't help but roll his eyes at the old butler. He originally thought that by simplifying everything and compressing the long-winded inheritance ceremony into one day, it would save him a lot of trouble. Who knew that even the simplest version of the ceremony would be an ordeal, with the attire and makeup alone tormenting him for over 2 hours. Not only did he have to change into a ridiculously cumbersome outfit corresponding to nobility, but they even stuffed a specially made padding between his legs, filling him up supposedly to enhance his masculinity. Besides that, he had to clip on false hair, apply lip balm, have eye makeup and face wax, and even slather a thick layer of lead powder on the exposed skin of his forehead and neck. After much refusal, he finally got them to swap it out for a harmless paste. And just when he managed to sort these out, he had to sit in this so-called meaningful carriage, traveling down the main road of Redwood Avenue, relying on the tire pattern to leave the lion's footprint, symbolizing the new Duke of Lionheart arriving at his domain. After all this nonsense, he was already irritated beyond measure. Yet the inheritance ceremony hadn't even started. Complete and utter bullshit. Using his sleeve, he dabbed some water, harshly wiping off the jumble of makeup on his face, then twisted open the carriage door handle and leaped out directly. I absolutely must not follow their way anymore. Who knows how many more torturous and bizarre procedures await me if I keep going? Duke, your makeup. Your makeup. What makeup? I'm done with it. Yanking off the wig from his head and roughly wiping the markings on his face, Leon glared menacingly at the furious old butler chasing after him. Either I go like this or you find someone else to be the Duke. You choose. Do I even have a choice? Watching as the new Duke, having run out of patience, began throwing a tantrum, the old butler realized he wasn't joking. Forced to stamp his feet tenaciously, he then clutched his chest in bitter plea. I I'll obey you, all right? But at least return to the carriage. I'm not going back. His patience completely exhausted, Leon, looking disdainfully at the carriage filled with jewels and exuding a nouveau riche aura behind him, replied irritably, "The carriage is too ridiculous, and besides it can't even pass through. Either get me another carriage or find another duke." The old butler shook his head repeatedly upon hearing this, face filled with despair. "Your Grace, this really can't be changed. Every duke, upon inheriting the title, must leave the lion's footprint on Redwood Avenue. It is tradition. If you switch the carriage, how will the lion's footprint? What bullshit lion's footprint? Isn't it just the tire marks? Roll it over yourself with a wheel, and don't use it to mess with me. This really cannot be changed. There's never been such a precedent." Having finally wiped off the cream mixed with pearl powder from his face, Leon, unwilling to make any further compromises, said maliciously, "Either there's no precedent, or there's no duke. Which do you want?" I want to die. Observing the new duke, who had evaded both maids and guards, now walking towards the estate, the old butler felt as though the world was spinning around him. If not for the need to maintain appearance, he likely would have beaten his chest and wept tears of anguish. Old Duke, you left after choosing this oddball, but he's still here to torment us. Why didn't you take me with you back then? Just when the old butler was clutching the carriage, lost in painful despair, a voice from the Duke called out ahead. "You, come over here." After disembarking and taking only a few steps, Leon saw a heap of overturned carriages on either side of the road. Waving the old butler over, Leon waited for him to catch up, huffing and puffing, then pointed at several shattered boxes of porcelain beside the road, furrowed his brow and complained, "Look at what you've done. Not only are you driving people off the road, but why are you smashing their goods? Who pushed them down? Hurry up and compensate them. Your Grace, this wasn't our doing." Hearing he might have to pay up, a guard with a dark complexion couldn't help but speak up in defense after sneakily glancing at Leon's expression. "These carriages were already overturned at the roadside before your carriage even arrived. It was probably the group ahead that drove them off." "The group ahead? Your Grace." Managing to catch a breath, the old butler first queried a servant, then explained, face pale, "The carriage ahead was likely Prince Joshua's, the one that passed by as we were waiting for you to board at the intersection." "Oh, so it was that one which almost splashed me with mud." Hearing the butler, Leon recalled the other ostentatiously attention-grabbing carriage drawn by 8 horses and couldn't help clicking his tongue in disgust. Nobles, royal family, TSK. Not a single good person among them. Looking at several distressed merchants crying by the roadside, and considering it wasn't his money, Leon, adhering to the principle of being as generous as possible, said, "Then pay them, after all. If not for delivering goods to your family, they wouldn't have encountered him. It's reasonable for the Ryan family to bear some compensation." "This? What do you mean, this?" Having slept poorly and been thoroughly harassed, Leon's mood was particularly foul. Turning around, he squinted at the old butler and growled, "Either you pay the compensation, or find someone else to. Pay. We'll pay everything." Having been threatened with abandonment several times by Leon, just the sound of the words, or had the old butler's heart, already nearing its limit, pounding chaotically. Firmly clutching his erratically thumping heart, feeling he would lose 10 years of his life today, the old butler grabbed Leon's arm with a tearful face and beseeched, "Your Grace, I'll agree to anything you want to do. Just please don't say or anymore. All right? The Ryan family won't manage without you. I'm old. My heart isn't good. I really can't take this." Seeing the old butler's face slightly purple, grasping his arm tightly with a look that said he'd kneel on the spot if he dared to refuse, Leon hesitated. Logically speaking, although in sole vision, this old butler wasn't a good man either, mostly engaging in schemes and political maneuvering, he hadn't directly committed any heinous acts. And at his advanced age, was it really right for Leon to relentlessly torment the old man? But Leon truly hadn't planned on becoming the Duke. Once the inheritance ceremony began and everyone gathered, he intended to find a way to reject it. And seeing the old butler's suffocatingly purple face, could he bear it when he discovered what Leon intended? About that, I have something I think it's best to inform you about in advance. Please, don't get too worked up when you hear it. After hesitating briefly, Leon went over to support the butler's back, then cautiously leaned in and whispered to the somewhat startled old butler, "Once everyone's gathered later, I plan to propose to the princess, using the entire Ryan family as a dowry. That way they can either choose another duke or end up with nothing at all. What do you think?" "Oh shit. Don't faint. Stand up straight. Oh man, why are you foaming at the mouth now?" The new Duke of Lionheart was indeed not very noble, watching from afar as Leon, carrying the old butler who was foaming at the mouth, hurried towards the enormous carriage. The middle-aged noblewoman couldn't help but pull her lips into an extremely speechless expression. Although she didn't know what exactly was said to cause the old butler to faint from anger on the spot, she vaguely heard the either or. At this moment, the only thought in the middle-aged noblewoman's mind was that the Ryan family was truly out of luck. Having gotten such an unconventional new duke, the Ryan family was probably counting down to its doom. Thinking about it this way, Princess Veronica actually wasn't too bad. Although she sometimes lacked decorum and couldn't help but do some outrageous things in private, at least she could communicate normally most of the time. In important situations, she could listen to advice and wouldn't run herself ragged like the Duke of Lionheart did to that poor old butler. Haha! This trip was truly worth it. Unlike the somewhat gloomy middle-aged noblewoman, after closely witnessing this farce, Princess Veronica quickly pulled herself back, promptly shutting the carriage window with a forceful and tempestuous laugh. After quite a while, once she'd laughed enough, she raised her hand to wipe away the tears at the corner of her eyes and, while gently rubbing her flat belly through her dress, complained, "Ouch! My stomach hurts from laughing. This new Duke of Lionheart indeed knows how to drive people crazy. But he's not a bad person overall." Looking back through the gap in the window and seeing that the Ryan family was indeed paying compensation and even helping right the overturned wagons at the new Duke's request, a trace of admiration flashed in Veronica's eyes. She then smiled and said to the middle-aged noblewoman, "To be honest, if he hadn't inherited the title of Duke of Lionheart but some other title, it would have been great. If he were a marquis from the Silver Chalice or Light Shield family, maybe he could even be my prince. What a pity." "Oh?" Upon hearing the princess's words, the middle-aged noblewoman couldn't help but shiver violently, then replied stiffly, "Your Highness? You're not joking with me, are you?" Seeing the middle-aged noblewoman's terrified expression, Princess Veronica couldn't help but smile, shook her head, and replied, "No, I'm serious. I really think he's quite good. Putting everything else aside, if I had someone like him as my prince, life would certainly be interesting. Interesting. More likely life-threatening. If he really became your prince and passed on his penchant for turning things upside down to you, I'd probably lose at least 10 to 20 years of my life." Princess Veronica, watching the princess with bright eyes, realizing she was actually quite interested in the Duke of Lionheart. The middle-aged noblewoman quickly spoke to prevent her fate from aligning with that of the unfortunate butler. "He's really not suitable for you. Even if the Ryan family turns into an empty shell, they are still the nominal leader of the old nobility. All of the old nobility with marital ties to the Ryan family wouldn't tolerate the Ryan family getting close to you. Hee. Don't worry, I understand that." Through the carriage's rear window, Veronica looked regretfully at the lion-engraved carriage. Seeing the nervous expression of the middle-aged noblewoman opposite her, she joked with a smile, "Look how tense you are." Those words were just said in passing. "I wouldn't casually choose someone to be my prince." "Well, speaking of choosing a prince, my father actually leans more towards marrying me off compared to letting me pick one. He has mentioned quite a few candidates to me recently, like the fourth prince of the Kingdom of Morna, the Grand Duke from the Kingdom of Hyzen, or possibly the leader of the Labour Party from the Kingdom of Orleson. So unless something goes wrong, I should end up choosing one out of these few. To be honest, purely on the conditions alone, they don't necessarily beat the Duke of Lionheart. Hearing the princess's words, the middle-aged noblewoman's expression froze slightly. Then she fell into a deep silence. If Princess Veronica got married off, not only would she be far away from home and the kingdom, but the candidates selected by His Majesty, though all grand nobles with immense strength, were almost all pushing 40 years of age. Moreover, that fourth prince of Morna was once married, but his wife died in childbirth. The Grand Duke of Hyzen had a leg that was crippled in a falling accident when he was a child and seemed to have a somewhat extreme and sinister demeanor, and the leader of the Labour Party from the Kingdom of Orleson was also said to be difficult to get along with. Though with Princess Veronica's abilities, even if she were married off, she would likely not suffer losses and might even seize the opportunity to steer their backing forces towards the kingdom. But a political marriage solely maintained by interests, given such a great disparity in the conditions of both parties, would naturally be devoid of happiness. So if she indeed got married into such a situation, Princess Veronica's latter half of life might not be very pleasant. How come as we were talking, you're starting to worry about me? Seeing the face full of concern and reluctance on the middle-aged noblewoman, the princess couldn't help but feel a slight warmth in her eyes, then smiled and comforted. Don't you know my capabilities? It's not just in the neighboring kingdoms, places where I can easily lean on forces. Even if I went alone to marry across the sea, I could still live quite comfortably. Rest assured. Yes. No matter where you go, you will have a good life, but will you be happy? After looking at the princess, whose face was smiling but whose eyes seemed calm and indifferent, the middle-aged noblewoman couldn't help but grit her teeth and then lowered her voice to ask, Your Highness, do you really have to marry outside the country? Can't you stay? Even if it's with the Duke of Lionheart. It's not a matter of whether I want to get married or not, but rather what my father thinks, because from the beginning, this kind of thing was never up to me to decide. Upon hearing the middle-aged noblewoman's inquiry, the princess raised her eyebrows slightly, then spoke calmly. After failing to seize the Department of Finance, my father may seem to have stepped back, handing over the royal family's manpower to me, but he has never given up the idea of completely controlling the kingdom. And to control the kingdom, it's nothing more than legislation, personnel, military power, and financial power. Joshua's mother happens to be the Minister of Finance's sister, so after a few years when he grows up, as long as they agree to let him inherit the throne, it's very likely that the Minister of Finance will support the royal family. Moreover, by that time, no matter if my reforms succeed or fail, they should thoroughly anger the old nobility and the lower house. Father only needs to announce the cancellation of my eligibility to inherit the throne, marry me off to another country, and he can easily quell everyone's anger. By doing so, he can take over most of the power I've seized from the old nobility at the lowest cost, gain strong support from outside the kingdom, pave the way for Joshua's succession, and turn the Minister of Finance to the royal family, thereby completely controlling the Department of Finance. Just a failed marriage of the eldest daughter can bring so many tangible and intangible benefits. Knowing my father, he would never let such an opportunity pass. How can this be? After listening to the princess's deductions, the middle-aged noblewoman couldn't help but stand up abruptly. Her eyes filled with anger as she said, You've done so much for the kingdom over the years. Even if His Majesty doesn't let you inherit the throne in the end, he shouldn't treat you like this. And besides, if it were someone else inheriting the throne, it would be one thing, but Prince Joshua, it's just too much. This isn't a matter of being excessive or not. Princess Veronica shook her head, smiling as she said, As the king's daughter, before I was even born, I already had everything that 99% of this country's people dream of, but as a cost, I also lost some things. Besides, you actually don't need to feel sad for me. I've only lost the right to choose my marriage, but Joshua is truly the pitiable one. Due to father's overindulgence, Joshua has even lost his mind. Isn't he worse off than me? At a time like this, how can you still crack jokes? Seeing the princess seemingly accepting her fate and even having the mood to joke with her, the middle-aged noblewoman couldn't help but stomp her foot. Your Highness, why aren't you angry at all? Are you really going to accept it just like that? Asterisk. What else can I do if I don't accept it? Asterisk. Hearing this, the princess's eyes flickered for a moment and then she replied calmly, if I want to reject such a future, should I immediately overthrow everything and make every effort to connect with the old nobility? Or should I try to lean towards the prime minister in the parliament and let those so-called economic bills that wantonly exploit ordinary people pass? Or perhaps offer a bounty and hire someone to assassinate my brother? Or should I launch a coup, lead the military into the royal palace, and personally hang my father on the gallows? Asterisk. Seeing the princess's expression calm to the point of indifference, with eyes revealing deep fatigue, the speechless middle-aged noblewoman felt a lump in her throat, and her vision suddenly blurred. She had looked after the princess for so many years, and as a child, she used to be a very lively child, always playing wildly in the royal palace garden, often getting covered in dirt, and never feeling sad even when being scolded, her face always carrying a sun-like brilliant smile. Asterisk. Asterisk. After growing up, although she still liked to smile, unknowingly, her smile changed in nuance, smiling gently, helplessly, self-deprecatingly, and wearily, as if she no longer smiled genuinely from the heart like when she was young. Asterisk. Asterisk. In her memory, when was the last time she saw such a brilliant smile? 3 years ago? 5 years ago? Or even longer? Asterisk. Oh dear. Look at you. Getting all worked up just talking about it. What I just said were all guesses, and even if it happens, that's a long way off, and besides, there might be other opportunities in these few years. Seeing the noblewoman, whose eyes were slightly red after hearing her words, with her mouth beginning to uncontrollably curve downwards, seemingly wanting to throw herself over and cry on her shoulder, the princess couldn't help but smile and then teased. For instance, if the Duke of Lionheart is charmed by seeing me one day and against all family pressure, proposes to me with the entire Ryan family as a dowry, then the situation would be completely reversed. Facing the opportunity to completely control the Department of Road Administration and the military, father might arrange for Joshua to marry a female monkey and then kick him across the sea, welding the throne onto my behind. Hearing the princess's cold joke, the middle-aged noblewoman couldn't help but burst into laughter, uncharacteristically disregarding etiquette. She reached out and pinched the princess's waist, her eyes still red as she complained, "How dare you say that? The Duke of Lionheart hasn't even turned 20 this year, and you are already 20. Oh no!" Seeing that some of the kingdom's top secrets were about to slip from the middle-aged noblewoman's mouth, the usually composed princess finally panicked, rushing to cover her mouth, gritting her teeth and threatening, "We agreed not to talk about this. If you dare mention it again, I'll take you with me to marry across the sea, and tie you to a fishing rod to catch sharks on the way over. I won't mention it. Is that not enough? You, please move your chest a bit. You're suffocating me." The two inside the carriage seemed to have reached some kind of understanding and avoided discussing future marriage topics, instead playfully sparring in a relaxed manner. Meanwhile, the carriage adorned with the lion insignia at the rear, after a pause of over 20 minutes, finally resumed its movement, swiftly passing through the path cleared by small merchants, carrying a reluctant duke towards the end of Redwood Avenue to the Ryan Manor. Once that excessively luxurious heart of lion carriage departed, the two inside the double-wheeled carriage calculated the time for the succession ritual, realizing they were almost late for the opening. They then moved from the cargo path to the noble exclusive avenue. With the coachman continuously accelerating, the sightseeing double-wheeled carriage sped along, its wheels nearly falling apart, barely entering the gates of Ryan Manor before the sun fully rose. "It's all right, we made it. It just started." Stepping down from the carriage using the footstool, handing a maid the invitation with a false identity, and seeing the manor's main building door still open, the princess, eager to watch the spectacle, quickly lifted her skirt and sprinted off, with the middle-aged noblewoman persistently advising her to slow down. "I'm going ahead. Hurry up a bit too. You. Wait." Seeing the princess running hastily with skirts lifted, her run still noticeably magnificent despite the covering cape, the middle-aged noblewoman couldn't help but stomp her foot in frustration, wishing to pull her back for several etiquette lessons. But as Princess Veronica ran further and further, worried her identity might be revealed, the middle-aged noblewoman could only let out a helpless sigh or two, then followed suit, lifting her skirt and running after her, breathlessly reminding her, Vinny, posture. Mind your posture. Ha! Seeing the princess suddenly halt by the door, standing there dazedly, the middle-aged noblewoman felt a chill of fear. Thinking that Princess Veronica's identity had been exposed, she hurriedly rushed over to help cover up. Only, slap! From inside the main hall came an incredibly loud slap. The arriving middle-aged noblewoman watched with horror as the newly appointed duke, who should have been receiving guest congratulations, single-handedly lifted Prince Joshua, spat harshly on his swollen face, and coldly sneered, "Trying to prevent me from becoming this duke? Okay, you better make good on that." Time moved slightly backward to when the Lionheart carriage was still stuck on the road. Important guests had already arrived, but the crucial Lionheart carriage, bearing the new duke, had yet to make its appearance. The new head of the Ryan family and the only remaining elder were on the verge of losing their minds. Has old York gone senile? Unaware that his fellow Ryan three elders, the old butler, had been tormented by someone's elementary school-style sentences to the point of a heart attack and was taken directly to the hospital, the rotund and plump family head, dressed in a specially tailored large tuxedo, couldn't help but complain. He said he's served the old duke for so many years, been through all sorts of special occasions, and absolutely wouldn't mess up. That's why I agreed to let him handle it. But just taking people out and bringing them back by carriage, such a small matter, how did he manage to delay the time? Don't worry, let's wait a little longer. Compared to the new head of the Ryan family, the family's elder was obviously more composed. After sending 2 chamberlains to urge him on, he frowned and said, "Our new duke is different from the old duke. He's someone from the lower echelons who never received a noble's education. It's inevitable for him to make a mess in this kind of grand ceremony. We can only trust old York now and give him a little more time." Give him more time? Who's going to give us more time then? Peering through the gap between the curtain tassels, spotting some impatient expressions on the guests' faces in the hall, the Ryan family head let out a sigh and said, with a lamenting expression, "Asterisk, if I'd known this could go wrong too, I wouldn't have set so many procedures beforehand. It would have spared him from some troubles, and we wouldn't be on such a tight schedule with no room to spare. Asterisk. Don't worry. The more at times like this, the more you need to keep your calm." Taking a slow sip of the tea beside him, the Ryan elder pulled a handkerchief from his breast pocket, wiping the tea stain from his white beard, and calmly advised, "The new duke is somewhat reckless, and he doesn't understand what it means to be a qualified noble at all. If we want him to cooperate with us willingly, we must first let him understand that even though he is the Duke of Lionheart, the Ryan family cannot continue without the help of the 3 of us. So, it's actually a good thing that the ceremony is complicated. It can temper his character and let him know our importance. Without us stepping in to arrange it, he wouldn't even be able to handle the inheritance ritual. This way, he will know his boundaries when dealing with us in the future." "I suppose you're right." Somewhat persuaded by the elder's words, the Ryan family head hesitated for a moment, then eventually nodded. "All right, then let's do everything according to the previous plan. You keep sending people to urge them, and I'll go to the front hall to calm down those impatient guests." Go ahead." When the 2 Ryan elders reached a consensus, with one sending people to fetch the new duke and the other trying to stabilize the guests, the time continued to pass, but the ceremony had yet to start. The guests on the main building's first floor were growing extremely impatient. "Heh! Our new duke certainly knows how to make an entrance." Noticing the growing frowns around him, a certain earl, known throughout the capital city as a petty nobility because of Leon, couldn't help but sarcastically remark, "Everyone here has marital ties with the Ryan family. Many have been associated with the old duke for a lifetime, and half are actually his elders, with some even older than him by 2 generations. In light of the recently deceased old duke, we, the elders, woke up at the crack of dawn to support him, traveled under the stars to attend the ceremony, and are we just going to wait like this?" Although the Earl's remarks were blatant, almost as if he had, "I'm stirring up trouble" written all over his face, the truth was that everyone here, attracted by the stink of benefits, was a flock of crows drawn to feast on the Ryan's corpse. They all knew each other's credentials, so there was no need to fake nobility. Secondly, having woken up early to attend the ceremony only to be left hanging like this was infuriating. When the Earl finished, not only was there no opposition, but someone even chimed in agreement. Indeed, the Ryan family did poorly this time. It's not that they did poorly. They didn't consider us affiliates, did they? After all, they're one of the kingdom's pillars. Why would they care about us minor nobles? Instigated intentionally by some and cooperated with by others with ulterior motives. When the Ryan family head emerged from backstage, the entire hall was already in chaos, full of candid criticisms and sarcastic comments. "Everyone, please calm down, and listen to me first." Hearing the uproarious accusations in the hall, the Ryan family head broke into a cold sweat, quickly raised his voice and shouted, Sorry. Today's ceremony was indeed arranged in haste. The Duke was delayed on the road due to certain matters. It's our Ryan family's inadequacy, neglecting to host you esteemed guests properly. But the reason for this is to express our gratitude for your attendance by preparing meticulously. Unfortunately, complexity often leads to issues. We hope you longtime friends and relatives will overlook it due to our long-standing relations. Furthermore, besides you all, Lady and representing Prime Minister Leonard and Prince Joshua representing the princess are also present. Please give them some face and bear with us a little longer. I sincerely thank you all for your generosity. As the Ryan family head completed his speech, the once noisy hall suddenly quieted down. The reason was simple. Though hurried, his words were highly effective in controlling the situation. Without hesitation, he first apologized, acknowledged his mistake, and soothed emotions. Then, with a tactical turn, implied the delay was not intentional neglect but out of utmost respect for everyone, skillfully reclaiming the moral high ground. He then pointed out the Prime Minister and the princess's presence, implying that causing further trouble would disrespect them, suppressing instigators like the petty Earl. Finally, by thanking everyone for their tolerance, he completely blocked the option of intolerance. It must be said, the ability of the Ryan three elders to climb to power after the Ryan Blood Knight, becoming the actual controllers of the Ryan family, wasn't solely due to seniority but because they indeed had some skills. This hasty series of moves from the Ryan family head certainly proved his rhetorical prowess. Unfortunately, although his words successfully appeased 99% of the people, they managed to anger the most troublesome person among them. I am no one's representative. Upon hearing Prince Joshua representing the princess, the elegantly dressed young man standing in front of the guests, engaged in conversation with the Prime Minister's wife, couldn't help but scowl. Ignoring the discreet tugging of his female companion, he unhesitatingly retorted, Watch your words. If you must mention representation, then I represent the royal family, not anyone else. Mouthy idiot. Seeing the solemn front hall and the unmasked anger on the young prince's face, the elder of the Ryan family backstage couldn't help but curse silently, then hurried out to replace the one who had stepped on the mines precisely, smiling benevolently to smooth things over. All the same, no need to rush. Whether it's Prince Joshua or Princess Veronica, both are children of His Majesty the King and can rightfully represent His Majesty and the royal family. Today, no matter which of the two attend, it is an honor for the Ryan family. Haha, speaking of which, the last time I saw Prince Joshua, he was only about 7 or 8 years old. In the blink of an eye, he is already able to represent His Majesty and attend the title succession ceremony of our Ryan family. Time flies by so fast. Humph! How can I be the same as her? You old geezer selling age and seniority. Watching the white-haired old man rush out from the backstage, trying hard to smooth over the situation, Joshua, with two irregular freckles on his cheekbones that seemed like dirt, narrowed his eyes, seemingly wanting to say more, but someone pinched him harshly at the waist. Your Highness! Hearing the slightly angry low call from his etiquette teacher and seeing the slightly panicked expression on his female companion's face, the freckled boy grudgingly bit back the reprimand that was about to spill out and impatiently urged, Fine then. When can your new duke make it here? Ask him to hurry. Don't waste our time. Almost there. The duke should arrive shortly. Seeing that they had finally appeased the arrogant and volatile young prince, the two elders of the Ryan family simultaneously breathed a sigh of relief. They then stood up, guiding the guests back to their original positions, chatting with the freckled boy with smiles, and the tense atmosphere in the hall returned to harmony, until the commotion of horses neighing came from outside the manor. Duke, you have finally… Spotting the figure of someone he had been eagerly waiting to see, the expectant elder quickly went to meet them, eager to follow through with the remaining procedures. However, upon meeting up, they discovered that the Duke had changed his appearance since leaving. Not only was his makeup wiped off, his carefully chosen accessories removed, and the specially tailored suit changed, but there was also a large stain on the front. Damn it! The Duke looks like he's fleeing from a disaster. How can the ceremony proceed? Is this how Old York handles things? Listening to the whispering among the guests in the hall and feeling the eyes resembling thorn pricks on his back, the elder of the Ryan family felt his world spinning. Duke! Seeing the stain on Leon's chest, the head of the Ryan family couldn't help but angrily and incredulously demand, What happened to you? Where's your makeup? Your clothes? Old York. Seeing the desperate eyes of the two elders before him, Leon, who had barely spared the old butler from being sent off, felt guilty and replied awkwardly, The old butler. He suddenly had a heart attack, and I barely saved him. He is now lying in the car, and this stain on my chest is from when he had a fit and spat saliva. Oh, he was perfectly fine when he left. Did he just coincidentally have a heart attack? Hearing Leon's explanation, the two Ryan elders exchanged a glance, both seeing deep helplessness in the other's eyes. Don't worry, there's still a way. Hearing the increasingly loud discussions in the hall, the elder of the Ryan family took a deep breath and instructed the panicked head of the family. You first find a way to calm the guests. I will take the Duke to the back to redo his makeup and change clothes, then come out again. Maybe then it can. No need to go to such trouble. I'll just say a few words. Although he wanted to add, or else. Considering the two old men were quite advanced in age and might be provoked into further health incidents, Leon suppressed the urge to elaborate, instead pulling away the hand of the family head and striding toward the hall. Duke? Wait for a moment. Wait. What are you going to do? Of course, what I want to do is to get rid of this unfortunate Duke title. Ignoring the two elders chasing him hurriedly, Leon pushed through the crowd of guests, stepped onto the main stage of the ceremony, and addressed the crowd below. I am here to announce something. If you insist on me being this Duke, then I intend to use the entire Ryan family. Scoundrel! A familiar shout interrupted Leon's words as a notorious earl from the capital city emerged from the crowd, compared him to the freckled boy with a dark face, and sinisterly provoked, daring to arrive late for the succession ceremony, delaying the esteemed guests for this long? You don't offer any apology? You are. Oh, so it's the little troublemaker. Recognizing the speaker by the emblem pinned to his chest, Leon couldn't be bothered to reply, but he did glance at the pair of male and female guests in the front row. The lady on the left in the plain gown seemed to be the Prime Minister's wife, whom he had seen in the newspaper photos with him, looked quite pleased. As Leon caught her gaze, she even nodded and saluted actively. Whereas the half-grown child on the right with the dirty spot on his face must be Prince Joshua, who had once splashed him with mud and toppled a caravan on the road. This brat was glaring at him angrily, only restrained by people beside him. Best not to come out. Saves me trouble. sadly, although Leon only gave a brief glance at the esteemed guests, and immediately withdrew his gaze, intending to finish quickly and abandon the unfortunate title. The eyes are windows to the soul, and his seemingly had more transparency than others. Even just a glance conveyed his inner disdain. "How dare you?" After meeting Leon's gaze for just a moment, with eyes showing 3 parts contempt and 7 parts disgust, and underneath, a fierce looking down that couldn't be hidden, Joshua, already filled with suppressed fire, exploded. Shaking off the arm of his companion, the freckled boy angrily looked up and scolded. "You are nothing but a lowly commoner, who stumbled upon immense luck to inherit a title, and you dare look at me with those eyes? Are you an idiot?" Merely glancing at him resulted in an onslaught of incomprehensible insults, leaving Leon not even having the time to get angry, only feeling utterly bewildered. Reasonably speaking, characters likely to explode with just another look like this disappeared 20 years ago. Not even third-rate dramas use such a cliché for villains, yet here he was encountering one today. "Damn it! I must blind those damned eyes of yours." Witnessing firsthand as Leon's gaze shifted from disdain to doubt, then to sudden comprehension, finally revealing a hint of pity like that for a fool, Joshua, already stoked with fury, saw his anger flare like a roaring fire. "You lowly Prince Joshua!" It wasn't just Leon startled by the sudden outburst from the freckled prince. Snapping back from shock, the etiquette teacher immediately stepped in, grabbing Joshua and sternly admonishing, "Mind your poise. Don't shame the royal family and your sister." "Shut up." Pushing aside the etiquette teacher who stepped on a landmine, the freckled prince snapped with bulging veins, "She is her. I am me. Don't bring Veronica's stuff to me. I am myself, not her copy. And you," looking at the man on stage who genuinely looked down on him, and feeling his self-esteem battered, the freckled prince stomped toward the main stage, raging as he walked. "You festering commoner. Illicit fruit hung from a crooked tree. Black-haired mongrel mixed among dogs. As a wild-born duke, you dare scorn me? Believe that I can have you removed from being duke. Tomorrow you could be packing up your wildlings and leaving the capital city." After swinging his arm with all his might, landing a resounding slap that sent him spinning sideways, Leon felt considerably eased. Amid the ensuing silence, he lifted the freckled prince by his collar and spat viciously on his dirty spot. Raising his sleeve, he stretched it to wipe harshly at the spot with his saliva, realizing it wasn't dirt but his natural freckles. Leon, somewhat disappointed, withdrew his hand, patting Joshua's rapidly swelling left cheek under his terror. "Want me gone as duke? All right, you'd better do as you say. If not, I'll consider you my grandson." I might know why old York suddenly had a heart attack. Watching the new duke who not only spat on the prince's face but even threatened to be the king's father, the head of the Ryan family felt his heart rate wildly accelerate, rushing past 180 and constantly pushing toward 200 beats per minute. Elder, think of something quickly." In the tight moment, it wasn't just 9 deaths for one life but rather being better off dead. The head of the Ryan family turned to their only hope. But, thud! Before the head could turn, the oldest of the 3 elder Ryan members, the very last pillar, had already rolled eyes up and collapsed on the carpet, mouth askew and twitching, seemingly predicting the Ryan family's tragic fate. Worse still, the new duke, who had landed the Ryan family in deep trouble, casually tossed aside the trembling prince, openly declaring to the bewildered guests, "Listen up. If you insist on me being this duke, then I propose using the entire Ryan family as my dowry to marry Princess Veronica. At worst, Okay." A clear voice rang from the back as a woman utterly unexpected in such a setting stepped swiftly into the front hall. Under gazes 10 times more bewildered than before, she joyously responded, "I accept your proposal. From now on, you're my prince." Faced with the sudden outburst, which killed the competition with just one sentence, everyone at Ryan Manor was completely stunned. From the Prince Freckles, who was thrown to the ground, to the middle-aged noblewoman behind the princess who almost fainted on the spot. everyone who witnessed this scene could only widen their eyes uncontrollably and then instinctively open their mouths. Huh? Under the witness of Prince Joshua and half of the kingdom's nobility, first Princess Veronica personally agreed to your proposal. You have obtained the gold-level identity badge Prince of Lutung. Prince of Lutung, a prince of the kingdom of Lutung, husband of first Princess Veronica. Although you do not qualify to inherit the throne, your words and actions can to some extent represent the royal family's will. Wearing effect, as a prince of distinguished status, within the kingdom of Lutung's territory, you may request anyone of lower status to salute you proactively. Advancement route. If your marriage to Princess Veronica is maintained long-term and remains intact even after she inherits the throne, this badge will automatically advance to heterochromatic badge man behind the queen, rice white. Hidden traits. No need to wear because this is purely a political marriage. Princess Veronica is quite fond of you but lacks a sufficiently deep emotional foundation. Thus, she will not interfere much in your private life. Could she really be a princess? After closing the automatically popped-up new badge, Leon opened his mouth, watching the voluptuous beauty striding towards him from outside the door, not knowing what to say for a moment. The investigators from the Purification Bureau had just left yesterday, and the suspicion on me regarding the Ryan Blood Knight hasn't been cleared. Logically, I should act cautiously now and quickly shake off the identity of Duke of Lionheart. But this was a golden badge, and it even had a clear advancement route, likely leading to an abnormal one. If I changed my mind immediately, the badge wouldn't be taken back. Would it? Apologies. The visit is a bit sudden. Sorry for disturbing everyone. While Leon hesitated on the stage, unsure whether to advance or retreat, a certain princess who seized a great opportunity had already walked briskly to the main stage. After nodding in greeting to the nobility who were dumbfounded by her sudden appearance, Princess Veronica gently lifted the hem of her simple long skirt and gracefully curtsied. Then she straightened up like a swan, turned lightly, and extended her white arm covered with a thin veil towards Leon on the stage, her cheeks slightly red as she gazed into his eyes, conveying a determination of breaking the boats. I originally just wanted to watch the fun, but I didn't expect such a windfall waiting for me. This man before me, a few years younger than I am, is the last piece to saving the kingdom. If I can leverage this marriage with him to successfully take over the political legacy of the Lionheart family, it would be worth it even if it means completely offending the old nobility today or inviting the mad assassination of the rebels.
No.
I don't agree. Seeing the man on the stage hesitate slightly and then actually reach for his sister's outstretched hand. A prince with a severely swollen left cheek couldn't help but shiver all over, showing deep terror in his eyes, immediately raising a loud objection. As the king's offspring, political literacy was naturally a crucial compulsory course. Although Joshua was arrogant and volatile, he was not completely foolish. After the initial shock, he immediately understood the meaning of this hand-holding. If that damn Duke of Lionheart successfully wooed Veronica by offering up the entire Ryan family, it would mean that half of the kingdom would fall into his sister's hands. Their status would instantly reverse, with him ending up as the one abandoned by their father completely. If Veronica were ruthless, he wouldn't even have a shot at inheriting the throne and might be thrown across the sea to feed the monkeys. No. Absolutely not. Whatever it takes, I cannot let her succeed today. Never. Veronica. After drawing everyone's attention with two loud shouts, disregarding the still faint pain from the slap mark on his face, Prince Freckles sternly rebuked, "Father has already set the scope for your selection of a prince, and you must choose from those people. By agreeing to the Duke of Lionheart's proposal now, you are defying Father's orders. Is that so?" Watching Prince Freckles, who suddenly jumped out to cause trouble, Veronica curled her lips, maintaining the pose of extending her arm to Leon, responding unhurriedly. "No choice. Duke of Lionheart is valiant, kind, young, and handsome, especially when he slaps someone in the face. It made me fall for him at first sight. Since love has come so suddenly, I can only disappoint Father's sincere intentions. What's more, as his most beloved daughter, being a little bit willful regarding my lifelong decisions, I believe he won't blame me. He will probably even feel happy for my happiness. Don't you think so, Joshua? Hearing his sister's loaded response, a dark expression immediately crossed Prince Freckles' face. Damn it. That old guy would indeed be glad. But it's not because of your so-called happiness. It's because the leader of the old nobility suddenly went mad, bringing the Department of Road Administration and the military to side with the royal family. This is troublesome. It seems she's determined to seize the opportunity to swallow up the Ryan family's inheritance. This path seems to be a dead end now. Where are the people of the Ryan family? Seeing his sister determined to marry the Duke of Lionheart, even if bringing up father couldn't suppress her, and knowing that the Duke was audacious and wouldn't fear his threats, the unwilling Joshua quickly switched targets, trying to find the actual controllers of the Ryan family to pressure that damn Duke. Coldly scanning a group of young golden-haired people around him, Prince Freckles didn't even bother pretending, continuing to look for someone with decision-making power while sharply questioning, "Is there no one left in the Ryan family? Are you just going to watch this bastard Duke wreak havoc? Do you willingly allow him to give away the entire Ryan family?" But even with his face already torn, no one from the Ryan family stood up, responding with a stretch of silence and the guests' murmurs and whispers. "Say something." Seeing the Ryan family still not emerge in such circumstances, the anxious Prince Freckles knitted his brows and shouted angrily, "Are you really just going to watch? Is the Ryan family all dead? No one dares to stop his nonsense. Don't bother looking. There really is no one left in the Ryan family." Watching the young wolf baring its fangs, trying to find someone to suppress him, Leon on the stage felt strange and couldn't help but remind, the former Duke's butler had a heart attack and is being treated in a carriage outside. The only remaining elder is quite old, and when I slapped you, he couldn't withstand the shock, passing out directly. As for the new head of the family, when your sister agreed to my proposal, I believe he clutched his heart and fell as well. Ah, the one lying at the door should be him. Huh? Oh? Poof. Looking at his younger brother's face, swollen on one side, with an expression that was 2 parts shock, 3 parts confusion, and 5 parts incredulous amusement, the princess bit her lip tightly, her face turning red as she inadvertently let out a small sound from the corner of her mouth. "Etiquette! Mind your etiquette!" It was as if she heard the psychic transmission of some middle-aged noblewoman. The amused princess pinched her own thigh hard, barely holding back her laughter with the help of pain, and then raised the back of her hand higher towards Leon, speaking softly with a hint of reproach. "My dear prince, how long must you make me wait here?" Gazing at the princess below the stage, her pretty face flushed from holding in laughter, her eyes filled with allure from stifling laughter. With a notably dazzling white chest, that part was real. Leon hesitated for a moment before finally bending slightly to take her hand voluntarily. It wasn't that I craved power, nor was I captivated by beauty, but this was the golden badge. And moreover, the princess was the first in line for the throne. As long as he maintained this superficial marital relationship with her, the moment the old king passed away, the golden badge would be upgraded to abnormal color. How could anyone refuse that? Success. Grasping Leon's hand, simultaneously seizing the Ryan family's legacy and the future of the entire kingdom, Veronica felt a sudden release, as if a shackle that had been crushing her was instantly lifted. Taking a step onto the main platform, intertwining her fingers tightly with Leon's and standing by his side, Princess Veronica's charming face couldn't help but flush with excitement once again. With this one-of-a-kind opportunity, she could completely assimilate the inheritance left by the Ryan family, ensuring the royal family and her own power could control the Department of Road Administration and the military, allowing her long-desired reforms to proceed. Next, she would clear away years of accumulated issues, find solutions to the fiscal deficit, and rebuild the military that had nearly been eroded by the Ryan family, leading the kingdom back to strength. The kingdom of the future would never again be like it was 6 years ago, when it crumbled instantly on the battlefield, and an invading army forced the displacement of more than half a county's citizens, displacing nearly 1 million people. Boom boom. With a contamination value that already exceeded 3, though Leon's physical conditioning wasn't enough to grant him completely non-human capabilities, his sensory abilities had already been significantly enhanced. When the princess stood by his side, aside from her increasingly rapid breathing, Leon vaguely heard her escalating heartbeat. Boom boom. Boom boom. Seeing the princess with a somewhat unfocused gaze and increasingly flushed cheeks, feeling the humid warmth from her soft palm and her rapidly climbing body temperature, Leon couldn't help but frown slightly, softly inquiring. Your Highness? Are you all right? You can just call me Veronica, or even Vini. With nearly a decade of intense yearning about to be fulfilled, and the country she deeply loved finally on the brink of dawn, the intensely excited princess gripped Leon's hand tightly, responding with eyes full of joy. I'm fine, really fine. I could even say I've never felt better than I do now. Prince. No, Leon. I really must thank you, and on behalf of the entire kingdom. Although I'm still unclear why you proposed to me, I can assure you, your choice was the right one. I seem to be a bit too excited. Boom boom. Boom boom. Boom boom. Though still firmly clasping Leon's hand, as the heartbeat grew more intense, the princess's body began to unconsciously lean against him, eventually looping her arm around Leon's and softly resting her head on his shoulder, speaking quietly with a blushing face. Support me, Leon. Please support me? Perhaps. Maybe I'm just too happy. I'm feeling a little dizzy now, and my heart is racing a bit. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, when the princess leaned in, her glossy and full lips brushed slightly against Leon's earlobe, spreading searing warmth like contagion to Leon's ear, turning it red as well. And her soft breath as she spoke tickled Leon's ear, causing his heartbeat to quicken as well. Leon felt his heart pounding like a drum, frenetically hammering against his chest and speeding up, the sound growing louder and louder. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. At some point, the entire hall fell silent again. Neither the whispering guests nor the prince, with eyes full of resentment, made another sound. Instead, they all instinctively clutched their hearts. What's happening to me? Feeling the heat and flush rising in her cheeks due to the rushing blood, the Prime Minister's wife, standing in the front row like Prince Freckles, touched her unusually red face in confusion and looked toward the Chamberlain at her side, hoping he could help her leave the increasingly stifling hall for some fresh air. But before the Prime Minister's wife could speak, the Chamberlain's legs gave way, and he stumbled forward a couple of steps before collapsing in front of the stage, struggling unsuccessfully to rise. His collapse seemed to trigger some strange switch, as the hall was immediately filled with the thuds of falling bodies. Like a collective drunken stupor, the hall's guests wore strange flushes, staggered a few steps, and then toppled in all directions. Poison! Someone's poisoned us. At that moment, someone finally perceived the anomaly. Prince Freckles, sprawled on the floor, flipped over, glaring at Leon on the stage like a hungry wolf, and roared with fury and despair. It was you. You poisoned us, didn't you? Asterisk idiot. This has nothing to do with poison, it's clearly an attack from an anomalous object. Asterisk. Ignoring Prince Freckles' wild speculations, listening to the drum-like heartbeats resonating throughout the hall and sensing the ever-increasing blood flow within him, Leon, also feeling quite uncomfortable, took a deep breath, supported the now disoriented princess to the side, and pulled out a small mirror from his coat, shaking it at himself. Woof! Along with Young Ha's understanding bark, a shopping bag with a goat's head and a black broom with cat paw prints on the handle instantly appeared in Leon's hand. Kid, we've figured it out a bit and realized your luck seems quite bad indeed. Peering through the holes in the shopping bag at the scene of chaos in the hall, the black goat summarized reluctantly. You really are a magnet for trouble, just like that Conan demon god you mentioned. Wherever you go, something has to happen. No matter what you plan, nothing goes smoothly. Enough with the nonsense. Let's get to work. Touching the black goat's horn, Leon quickly surveyed everyone's soul status in the hall, finding them all normal, which deepened his frown. He issued a mental command via direct message. I suspect this is an attempted assassination of the princess by the rebels, but I couldn't locate the person deploying the anomalous object. Their range might exceed my vision. However, it's also possible they used some means to evade soul detection abilities after acquiring my information. So keep watch for me. He neither attacked nor ran away. Quite cautious indeed. Feeling the heartbeat on the main stage that was getting faster but still not moving and staying in place, an old man among the guests, dressed slightly shabbily and with a face full of pain, raised an eyebrow in surprise. His ability temporarily enhanced the heart of everyone within range, accelerating their blood circulation. If the opponent became overly tense or retreated immediately when sensing danger, the enhanced heart would receive double stimulation, causing the blood flow to surpass the body's limit, rendering them incapable of resisting. In simple terms, the faster someone moved within his ability's range, the quicker they would fall, just like the two old men from the Ryan family. During the 10 minutes his ability slowly took effect, they ran around, chatted with guests, and chased the target back and forth twice. Emotionally, they were continuously stimulated, combined with their poor health due to old age, so they collapsed even before his ability fully activated. Yet the target on stage, although affected by his ability, had a heart less impacted than others, at about 70%. Combined with a physique slightly above an ordinary person's, he had not yet lost his ability to act. Seems I'll have to apply more pressure. Apologizing to his companions internally, the shabby old man applied pressure with his palm on his own chest, causing his frail body to tremble. Simultaneously, the whole hall of people shivered along with him. No. I can't anymore. Help! Help! I don't want to die. Since everyone's physical strength varied, some could still lean against pillars or other objects to barely stand. However, under the sudden rush of blood to the brain, they all clutched their chests and fell, unable even to plea for help. Now, Leon was the only one still standing in the entire hall. Success. Feeling the heart on stage racing towards its limit, the shabby old man couldn't help but smile subtly. Even if you saw through my ability and knew the more you move, the quicker you fall, it did not matter. Whether you ran or not, you would still collapse from holding out. Step, step, step. Hearing footsteps suddenly echoing from the stage, feeling the heart finally moving, the shabby old man smiled knowingly. Asterisk. Finally losing composure? Asterisk. Unfortunately, it's too late. Although my ability is highly limited, not only in small range, lengthy activation time, and indiscriminate of friend or foe, failing to escape immediately upon sensing abnormality means you've already lost. Tap. Surprisingly, the footsteps on the stage didn't last long or even leave the main stage at all, stopping instead at a spot suitable for addressing everyone present. Ladies and gentlemen. Glancing at the guests below, confirming they'd mostly lost mobility, Leon took a deep breath and loudly asked, "Why don't you rise and salute the prince? Oh? Are you mad?" Hearing Leon's question, the shabby old man hiding among the guests almost laughed aloud. These people were under his ability, their hearts almost driven to death. How could they stand and salute now? At this moment, he thought only he who wielded the ability could. Wait, only I can stand now. Realizing something was amiss, the shabby old man trembled, eyes filled with terror, wishing he could go deaf. But it was too late. As Leon's words fell, the shabby old man, previously lying in pain, suddenly released the hand pressed to his heart, sprang up from the carpet, and respectfully bowed to the target he planned to assassinate, face full of fear. "Greetings, PR." Bang! The shabby old man, just standing, seemed grabbed by an invisible giant hand and bent backward at a sharp angle, hitting his head with a bang and passing out. Seems it's him. Feeling his heartbeat stabilize and confirming the anomalous object causing it to accelerate had stopped, Leon's frowning brow finally relaxed. Beckoning to the fallen shabby old man with his fingers, he used the power of the Holy Spirit pendant to drag him over and searched his body, finally finding a hard metallic object near his heart. Name. Heartbeat moment. Enhance, synchronize. Appearance. A pacemaker made from flexible brass embedded in the chest cavity of a patient, driven by high-concentration whale oil injections at regular intervals, with an extremely intricate internal structure. If you listen closely, you should hear the hiss of a microsteam engine operating and the meshing sound of dozens of microrods driving gears. Ability. Heart enhancement, heartbeat synchronization. Cost. None. File. A precision instrument smuggled from Croak, the city of machinery, to help patients with congenital weak hearts maintain their heartbeat. Just the material cost is enough to buy a 100-acre sugarcane plantation. Due to its exorbitant cost, each user gains a healthy body and escapes death from a weak heart but cannot avoid the greed of marauders. Evaluation. Although this anomalous object's ability is extremely concealed and nearly impossible to detect, if you don't have a heart several times weaker than normal, it's advised not to use it. Contamination value, 2.5. Through personal observation and summarization, you've gained a lot of intelligence on heartbeat moment, activating the heterogeneous badge, Materialist Soul, Crimson. Understanding the activation rules of heartbeat moment greatly increased your resistance to this anomalous object, allowing you to block its deeper influences. So, its ability is to first enhance its heart, then forcibly synchronize all hearts within range. Tearing open the shabby old man's shirt to look at the complex and intricate device, Leon hesitated but refrained from removing it. Instead, he took a rope and tied the unconscious man up. Instructing the black goat to keep watch for abnormalities and to notify him immediately if anything arose, Leon took out the plague-infected blood band, obtained from a female prisoner, first wrapping it around the man's leg to temporarily deprive him of leg health, then around the back of his head to heal his head injury. After his concussion healed, the groggy, shabby old man felt sharp pain in his leg but couldn't scream as a salty old rag was stuffed into his mouth. I have a question for you. Tossing the other sock into his portable mirror, Leon, with one shoe back on, looked at the despairing man and asked rapidly, "Are your accomplices nearby?" "Indeed, there are more. So including you, how many rebels possessing anomalous objects are around?" "1, 2, 3. Only 2 people? Then. Kid, the gun." Bang, 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 bang. Just as Leon was leveraging the black goat's ability to quickly extract the intelligence he needed, a blonde guard who had fainted outside the door suddenly pulled out the nail gun from his waist and fired 4 consecutive shots at Leon's head, forcibly interrupting his interrogation. Blonde? Could Ryan's family also be joining the rebels? Relying on the shield of the Holy Spirit pendant to block all 4 nails, Leon watched as the blonde guard, swift and deft, replaced the gas canister, preparing to shoot at him again. Feeling that something was off, Leon furrowed his brows and aimed his invisible long nail, initially intended for the guard's head, at the nail gun in the blonde guard's hand instead. Crack! With a sharp metallic rupture, the newly replaced gas canister exploded instantly, and the rapidly spreading compressed air pushed the blonde guard, sending him flying backward into the wall behind him. Damn it! Looking at his nail gun, with the air channel split and rendered unusable, the blonde guard cursed bitterly. He then threw the nail gun toward Leon and rolled his eyes before toppling groundward. At the same time, another guard, who was in Leon's blind spot, suddenly stood up, pulling out a nail gun from his waist and firing 4 nails at the back of Leon's head. Bang! 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 Indeed, that member of Ryan's family was merely being controlled, not another rebel's true form. As for the other rebel's ability, it must be some way to forcefully control others' actions. Upon hearing the noise, Leon turned his head back and looked at the nails scattered on the ground and the guard still shooting at him from a distance. He couldn't help but take a deep breath, cold sweat streaming down his back. No wonder the cleaner's death rate is so high. When facing opponents armed with various peculiarly powerful anomalous objects, especially those who could control anomalous objects, even the slightest negligence could be fatal. Asterisk if I just acted on impulse and used the Holy Spirit pendant to kill the blonde guard. Not only would I have wrongly killed an innocent controlled individual, but if I'd thought the enemy was dealt with and retracted my shield to conserve energy, I'd have gotten a bullet straight through my head from this blind spot shot. Asterisk. Asterisk, damn it. This ability is so annoying. Asterisk. Watching Leon in his invisible shield, ignoring his shooting and instead scanning the surroundings intently, the person controlling the blonde guard gritted their teeth in frustration. Having depleted all the nails in the guard's gun without breaking Leon's shield, he had to switch to a new body and continue shooting at Leon from another blind spot. Toward the end, even before the preceding body pulled the trigger and the nail left the chamber, he had already switched to a new body to continue shooting, the bang-bang of gunfire almost forming a continuous sound. Yet, unfortunately, no matter what position he shot from, even those impossible blind spots, he could not penetrate the invisible turtle shell surrounding the target. Hundreds of nails were stopped, not one falling within half a meter of the target. How could he be killed? Watching the potential hosts in the hall getting taken down one by the target, leaving almost no one unarmed, the second rebel helplessly lowered his nail gun. Asterisk, no wonder Barton and Samantha both fell into his hands. Although his ability is simple and brutal, it supports both attack and defense with a strength clearly surpassing ordinary firearms. Asterisk. In a surprise assassination, I could think of a way to catch him off guard. But in this situation where he's prepared, my abilities were completely countered. Asterisk, have they given up? Then it's my turn. Asterisk. After the gunfire quieted, Leon looked at the middle-aged guard who had voluntarily stopped shooting in the distance and calmly asked, "Tell me, is your true self nearby?" Asterisk, here it is. That deadly interrogation method. Asterisk. Upon hearing Leon's question, the middle-aged guard was startled and immediately resumed shooting, switching to another body to continue firing, trying to mask the devil-like interrogation with the noise of the gunshots. Unfortunately, even with that slight delay, Leon already got the answer he wanted. So your true self is nearby. Turning to look at another guard behind him, breaking the nail gun in his hand, and cutting off the deafening gunfire, Leon's lips curled slightly upward before continuing to inquire. Is your true self in the hall? Not in the hall, huh? Then in the manor? Outside the manor. Not in any of those places? Then in the core building area? Still near the main building? So the target is close to the hall but not in it. So, if your true self is near the hall, what does your true self look like? Man? Fat? Thin? Elderly? Young? With Leon's calm questions, the people controlled by the second rebel grew increasingly terrified. Even if I switch bodies and play dead lying on the ground, Leon's questioning only slowed slightly, continuing steadily and constantly. It seemed as if a fierce tiger was unraveling the layers surrounding me. With each question of his, another layer of my disguise was easily peeled away, reducing the barrier between me and the tiger's maw by one more layer. Initially, I merely heard the tiger's voice, but as more layers of protection fell away, I gradually felt the powerful pressure from its claw. Gradually, I seemed to smell the metallic blood sent from its mouth and felt those sharp teeth, hanging with bits of flesh, lightly tracing my goose-bumped neck through the last layer of gossamer-thin protection. A slender, somewhat short young man outside the hall yet very close by? Recapping the answers, Leon tilted his head in thought, showing an expression of realization. If you entered Ryan Manor without entering the hall, then your disguised identity should be as a servant or an attendant, right? I recall seeing a rather short attendant unloading the footstool from the carriage earlier. Could that be you? Asterisk, he knows. He knows who I am. Asterisk. Seeing his true self exposed and overwhelmed by the slow tightening noose, the tormented rebel nearly lost his sanity. Devil! You're a devil! A certain corpulent woman lying trembling at the door suddenly jumped up and screamed at Leon, tears in her eyes, before collapsing back down. Simultaneously, in Leon's sole vision, a terrified soul dashed out of the hall, as if pursued, and hastily jumped into a new body, then sprinted madly towards the outside of the manor. Asterisk never again. I'm never coming back. Asterisk. It seemed I had guessed correctly. Watching the flame a few hundred meters away that desperately fled, Leon couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. He then swung a leg over the witch's broom that automatically hovered nearby, ready to pursue and bring the opponent to justice. But just as the witch's broom was about to start, the lesson from narrowly escaping a bullet shot earlier surged in his mind, causing Leon to hesitate slightly. He then turned back to the princess, wrapping the plague-infected blood bandage around her, intending to wake her up first. Although according to that shabby old man's testimony, there seemed to be only 2 rebels in Ryan Manor with an anomalous object, since they had found a way to evade his soul vision. It's not impossible that they faked their stories during interrogation. If there was indeed a 3rd rebel nearby, once Leon left to capture someone, they wouldn't even need to use an anomalous object. Even just a tiny nail gun could easily end the princess's life. It was safer to take her along. Soon, under the health supplied by the plague-infected blood bandage, the princess, who fainted due to excessive blood flow, awoke with a faint bewilderment as she looked at Leon. What happened to me? Your Highness, the rebels just launched an assassination attempt against you, which I thwarted. I am now preparing to apprehend the assailants. After briefly explaining the situation, Leon helped the still-dazed princess onto the broom, advising her to hold tight around his waist, and then gently tapped the witch's broom with his heel. Ah! Accompanied by Princess Veronica's exclamation, the fully accelerated witch's broom shot out from the hall like an arrow, controlled by Leon as they chased after the desperately fleeing short man. You stay away. Stay away from me. Seeing that demon who could see into people's hearts was now flying directly towards him, the short man couldn't help but crumble instantly. His legs gave out as he nearly fell to the ground. Pop! Yet at that moment, with the sound like a soap bubble bursting, as if a veil covering the soul was suddenly wiped away, the short man's fear-filled, chaotic eyes cleared in an instant. So I wasn't a coward after all. Memories of being a coward were woven into me to make me flee out of fear and lure the target into an ambush? Asterisk, damn it. Used as bait again. Asterisk. Realizing what had happened to him, even if he recalled that he had initially agreed to this plan, the short man couldn't help but feel a twinge of discomfort in his heart. If it weren't for being utterly crushed during interrogation by that demon, nearly leading to a mental breakdown that abandoned his escape, forcing Lucy to prematurely release part of the ability, he might not have regained his true memories until the assassination mission was fully completed. Asterisk, Lucy's old witch's memory ability is terrifying every time I wake up afterward, but it's oddly useful for completing missions. After all, even a bait like me didn't know there was an ambush, so the one behind wouldn't be able to react in time. Asterisk. Shivering violently, the coward, who regained a sliver of memory, managed to avoid collapsing directly. He merely staggered a few steps before regaining his footing and continued to flee madly towards the manor's exit. Meanwhile, Leon, who was relentlessly pursuing, remained cautious, never exiting his soul vision, and suddenly detected a small ripple in the soul of the short man. Could this be a trap? Watching the distant soul, whose level of fear had halved, Leon's brows furrowed slightly. He hesitated for a moment before purposely slowing down. The Emma Remnant's scripture's 7th rule was to never underestimate an opponent's intelligence. The ability to conduct sting operations wasn't exclusive to cleaners. It also belonged to intelligent anomalous objects, uncontrollable afflicted, and the evil god-worshipping underground sect. Those brainy enemies, when trying to execute plans, would similarly toss out bait, luring incautious cleaners into traps to eliminate them in advance, paving the way for their own actions. I have to guard against this. Reflecting on Senior Emma's teachings, Leon squinted at the short man who was about to escape Ryan Manor. Instead of pressing the witch's broom to accelerate, he pulled up the broomstick and flew upward, then gently tapped the small mirror he carried. Wherever you want to lead me, the trap can't work unless I'm physically there. Can it? Hiss. Feeling a cold chill penetrate his heart as if some extremely lethal thing had locked its sight on him, The short man shivered all over, cautiously turning his head to check behind him while fleeing. Asterisk, what the hell? Asterisk. Seeing Leon in the sky several hundred meters away, assembling a sniper rifle silently, the short man felt utterly doomed. According to information, the leader somehow acquired knowledge that while the target's ability was comprehensive in attack and defense, its maximum shooting range wasn't impressive, supposedly only a few dozen meters. This ensured his safety. Asterisk, but even though his ability has limited range, he's actually carrying a sniper rifle. I'm dead for sure. Asterisk. Staring at the weapon gradually forming in the sky behind him, the short man ignored any ambush locations and dashed toward the nearest building, knocking out an occupant en route. He then hid behind a shelf stacked with stuff. But, with a faint sound like a gas leak, the sack filled with rice burst open. Shelves, walls, bricks, and outer walls, all obstacles in front of the short man, were simultaneously pierced by a glowing nail. Ah! The short man felt a sudden chill at his thigh crease. Before he could react, he was knocked out by the momentum of the nail, the burning smell of scorched flesh wafting into his nostrils. Asterisk, no. I don't want to die yet. Asterisk. Using the remarkable intuition of a soul-type anomalous object user, he vaguely sensed a second shot was imminent, one that would assuredly be fatal. The short man collapsed, scrambling towards the window, hoping to plead with the demon in the sky, testing if surrendering would save his life. Yet as he crawled to the window, intending to proclaim his surrender, the man in the sky riding a peculiar broom, casting a presence more menacing than a demon's, suddenly twitched violently, then plunged like a kite with its string cut. Inside the small clock tower 6 streets over. I hit him, readjusting her fallen headscarf to cover her shiny bald head. The woman with odd goggles put away her slingshot and turned her curious gaze towards the middle-aged man beside her. Chief, how did you know he would fly up? I saw it with my own eyes. Through the telescope in his hand, the middle-aged man, after witnessing Leon and the princess falling from the sky together, sighed with a mix of relief and complexity as he explained, the anomalous object I possess is called the Gate of the Other World. Besides being able to open behind any door in the capital city, allowing you to enter the base at any time, it can even open a door to the future. What? Hearing the middle-aged man's explanation of his ability for the first time, the bald woman couldn't help but look over in shock, asking with her eyes wide open, the future? Is it the future I'm thinking of? Yes, it's the future you're thinking of, and this future can still be changed. Everything I did after learning about the future can change how the future looks. For instance, the slingshot you just fired was the answer I found from the future. After glancing toward Ryan Manor, the gray-templed middle-aged man said with a complex expression, that guy from the Purification Bureau is really incredibly cautious and almost flawless in his work. At the slightest sign of movement around, he immediately uses that extremely troublesome ability to protect himself and the princess, not giving even the slightest chance. You know, whether it's sneak attacks or poison blasts, yesterday I took you from the future and tried no less than 80 times, with more than a dozen different plans. But every time he managed to evade it without fail, never once could we completely kill him. The 2 closest attempts to success. Once we went all out, sparing no cost to corner him into a dead end, but he activated a lethal strand of hair. Except for Phoebe and her sister, everyone else was killed instantly by that strand, without any ability to resist, and he was only slightly injured. The second time we sent Phoebe, during one of her amnesiac spells, to approach him. When she reached out and touched him, everyone forgot about his existence. But just by touching Phoebe's hand, everyone's memories began to return slowly, and eventually, we still couldn't do anything to him. After recalling the battle of wits and courage with Prince Lion, the middle-aged man turned his head, looking at the bald woman, who was already dumbfounded beside him, and sighed helplessly. That guy's ability is really disgustingly perfect, almost without any weaknesses. I really don't know what he encountered to become so cautious, as if someone is always ready to harm him. It seems he really didn't over-prepare, After all, you attempted to harm him over 80 times in one night. If he weren't cautious enough, he probably wouldn't be around anymore. Although that guy from the Purification Bureau has a remarkable ability, you eventually found a chance to catch him, which still shows that your ability is stronger. Looking at her harmful yet persistent leader with eyes that seemed to see a pervert, the bald woman said somewhat excitedly, "Right, leader. You can see the future. With this ability, aren't you invincible? Can't you do whatever you want?"
No.
The middle-aged man's state seemed somewhat strange. He reached out to wipe away the sudden tears at the corner of his eye and shook his head with a somewhat forlorn tone. Even if you can see the future infinitely many times, it doesn't necessarily mean you can really change the future, because some problems are destined to have no answers. This, leader, I don't understand. Simply put, there are some things you just can't change, even if you know they will happen. For instance, the future of this nation. After looking at the slightly bewildered eyes of the bald woman, the middle-aged man hesitated slightly and then smiled with a bit of relief, explaining, "You know, our last attempt to assassinate the princess was actually successful." "What?" "It's true. When I passed through the gate of the other world and reached the future, we had Luke control the princess's chamberlain, successfully killing her. But shortly after her death, Future Me found a way to send back the message. Future Me said that even in the future without the princess, the kingdom still didn't get saved. It just went from completely broken to barely hanging on. And because of a moment of weakness after exiting the door of the future, I slightly changed the plan, letting the guard controlled by Luke choose another position, voluntarily giving up the chance for success in the assassination." This. Hearing that the failed assassination was actually their leader's voluntary abandonment, the bald woman was dumbfounded for a while, then suddenly lunged forward to grab the middle-aged man's shoulders, veins popping as she shouted, Why? Also, she's the princess. You're a rebel. You tell me you got soft-hearted? What the hell are you talking about? I had no choice. I couldn't not be soft-hearted. She is, after all, my sister." "What?" Using the back of his hand to wipe the tear stains at the corner of his eye, which rubbed off the foundation covering his face, revealing several irregularly shaped freckles that looked like dirt stains, the middle-aged man said with complex emotions, "If not for her, I would have been killed in the capital city in the second year of the war. Since the kingdom's fate is as tragic with or without her, how could I bear to kill her?" "So the leader of the rebels turned out to be the kingdom's prince? What have I been doing all along?" Looking at the distinctly spotted freckles on the middle-aged man's weathered face, the bald woman felt a rush of blood to the brain, almost driving her mad on the spot, and stammered as she questioned, "Are you really Joshua? That foolish prince? How is it possible? You? I've said it before. My ability is called the Gate of the Other World." Gaze fixed on the distant Ryan Manor, the middle-aged man said with a desolate look, "Having the powerful anomalous object that can observe the future at will naturally comes with an incomparable cost, and the cost I paid is akin to the name of this ability. I, who suffered 30 years of pain because of the kingdom's destruction, chose to step through the gate to the other world, completely giving up everything I had, with no family, no past, and not even a future anymore. Now, I am just a ghost wandering in the other world. Even if I have the chance to save the kingdom and change all the regrets I change no longer have the slightest relation to me. This is the cost of using the Gate of the Other World." After explaining the truth of his ability, looking at the completely contorted expression of the bald woman, the middle-aged man wiped away his tears and bowed apologetically. "I'm sorry. I originally intended to take this secret to the grave, but in just a few more minutes, my sister, the princess, will disappear from everyone's memory, and I will follow and forget her too. I just couldn't hold back the urge to confide in someone while my memory is still intact. Damn it. Why did you choose me? Why didn't you, Because among all of us, you're the only one I can beat, sorry." After forcing a pinch of some strange powder into the bald woman's mouth, the middle-aged man looked at her terrified face and said, Don't worry, what I gave you isn't poison. It's powder made from Phoebe's nails, and according to the dose, it should only make you lose about an hour of memory. Just sleep for a while, just a while. Also, thank you for listening to my secret. I feel much better after getting it all out. Looking at the apologetic middle-aged man in front of her, the bald woman struggled twice but couldn't break free. Her mouth still clamped so she couldn't curse, leaving her to continuously express her anger through her eyes. Asterisk, you feel better. But now I feel terrible. Let go of me, you bastard. Damn it. Asterisk. Leon? How are you? Without knowing that her currently somewhat brain-dead brother would evolve into the ultimate creature decades later, Veronica immediately hugged Leon's waist, dragging his pale-faced self from the soft, sponge-like ground. I'm fine. I'm okay. After spitting twice, trying to eject the cheesecake-like floor tile from his mouth, Leon, feeling almost completely drained, hastily disabled the Holy Spirit pendant's ability to alter reality. Then he pulled out the plague-infected blood band, attempting to place it on his injured left shoulder. Do I need to wrap this bandage? Understanding Leon's intent, Veronica quickly took over the bandage, efficiently wrapping it around Leon's left shoulder, and as per Leon's instruction, held his right hand against the blood-stained bandage. Squeak! Accompanied by the release of health from the bandage, a tooth-aching sound of bones rubbing together emerged. Leon's fractured left clavicle slowly returned to place, and the shattered pieces of his scapula reassembled. Soon, a small metal ball, smaller than a pea and seemingly crushed by bones, was squeezed out from Leon's shoulder as his bones and muscles resumed their positions. Was this a pellet from a child's slingshot? After seeing the fallen object clearly, Leon's brows instantly knitted tightly, a trace of genuine bewilderment flickering in his gaze. After the Demon Series badges upgraded to gold level, the range of his soul vision had almost extended to 3 kilometers, but he hadn't detected any killing intent within his range just seconds ago, indicating the attacker's position was beyond his maximum sight. Even if he were fixed in the air for better aiming, someone capable of shattering his scapula from a distance of at least 3 kilometers with a small, soft lead projectile must have shooting skills far surpassing human abilities, suggesting it was some anomalous object ability at play. But for him to forego using the Holy Spirit pendant and opt for remote sniping was a snap decision. How had the opponent predicted this? Could it be causality? Foresight? With such an exceedingly powerful ability, wouldn't one save or rule the world instead of hitting him with a single lead pellet? Isn't this just absurdly insane? While Leon was racking his brains over the situation, a somewhat hurried footstep echoed from a distance. Tracing the sound, Leon discovered a maid from the Ryan family stealthily creeping around a nearby building, approaching where he had fallen. Impossible to fall from such a height and not die. Controlling the maid to peek through the small kitchen window with caution towards where the demon had fallen, upon seeing Leon unscathed except for a bandage on his shoulder, a short man with an injured thigh couldn't help but gnash his teeth and hammer the floor in frustration. Should he control a guard, find a gun, and then, watching the demon, who slowly turned their gaze in his direction and gradually smirked, the maid and the short man controlling her both shivered simultaneously, promptly pretending to faint on the spot. Meanwhile, from the second floor of another building several dozen meters away, a figure abruptly leaped down, rushed toward the warehouse where the short man resided, kicked open the door, and fled carrying his out-of-body self. One should know contentment. To escape with his life from such a demon was an enormous stroke of luck. Any greed for attempting further assassination would surely cost him even this last chance of escape. Strange. Could it be there are no more ambushes? Narrowing his eyes, Leon, reaching for the director's hair, couldn't quite grasp the enemy's motive as he watched the short man fleeing in panic within his soul vision. After remaining on alert for a while and confirming the assassination attempt was truly over without any other rebels emerging, Leon breathed a sigh of relief, yet still found himself puzzling over it. Those rebels went through so much trouble only to hit him with a single lead pellet. Was that all there was to it? What were they after? Leon. The bandage seems to have stopped. At that moment, a cautious reminder sounded. Following Princess Veronica's prompt, Leon examined the bandage on his shoulder. It was then he realized the health stored within had been depleted, yet his shoulder hadn't fully healed. With little health left in the plague-infected bloodband originally, using it today first to heal a slovenly old man. Then the princess's fainting, and now his shattered shoulder, it was no surprise it's depleted. Replenishing it will suffice. Stay close behind me. Don't wander too far, he instructed the princess, before using his sole vision to inspect the vicinity. Discovering a nearby building was a kitchen with a few live chickens and ducks inside. He then moved with the princess in tow to restock the plague-infected bloodband's consumed health. Quack! Cluck cluck! Cluck cluck! Entering the kitchen, Leon was just about to grab one of the bound chickens or ducks to drain some life force for his recovery when he glimpsed a pair of curious wide eyes amidst the fluttering creatures. Big brother, who are you guys? We're here to fetch some chickens and ducks. Carefully examining the little girl's soul and confirming she wasn't a rebel in disguise, Leon hesitated after catching a fat chicken. Considering the creatures tied by the plague-infected bloodband died horrifically, he refrained from acting immediately but instead attempted to cover the little girl's eyes with his other hand. Hiss! As Leon lifted his left hand, his not fully healed scapula sent a piercing pain through him, causing him to inhale sharply. Realizing it wasn't currently within his capability, he turned to face the princess outside the kitchen. Your Highness, I can't lift my left hand. Please take the child outside first. Just call me Veronica. Nodding in agreement with Leon's request, Veronica, without a hint of disdain, picked up the dirty little girl and carried her out of the kitchen. Apparently fond of children, the princess affectionately nudged her forehead against the girl's, smiling gently as she coaxed. Aren't you sweet? Come on, tell me your name. Me? Blinking her crystal-like big eyes, the little girl extended her ash-dusted hand and patted it forcefully on the princess's pale bust, then answered with utter seriousness. Phoebe. Granny, my name is Phoebe. Hearing the little girl's address, the princess, now approaching 28 and thus considered an older young woman, couldn't help but have her expression freeze. Clamping her small cheek, she feigned annoyance as she corrected. Sister. It's sister. Granny, the little girl said while reaching up to pat her chest once more. No calling me Granny. Call me sister, I'll give you candy. Call me Granny again and sister will spank your butt. Then, give me candy first. Candy. Surveying her dress with no pockets, the princess, unable to make bricks without straw, rolled her eyes before resorting to a white lie. Of course, there's candy, but sister left her money behind. When she gets some, she'll buy it for you. Granny. Slap. This little brat. Watching the little girl call her Granny, slapping her chest every time, leaving it smudged with soot, Princess Veronica helplessly chuckled, abandoning any hope of correcting her. Following a screeching sound as though slaughtering a chicken, Leon within the kitchen finished his task and re-wrapped the bandage around his shoulder. Sorry for the intrusion. Here's the money for the chicken. Nodding at the beautiful woman cradling the child at the doorway, Leon slipped her 2 silver wheels, managing to resist the urge to glance at her bust. One leg was now straddled on the witch's broom. He took off toward the Purification Bureau. Why did he give me money? Standing there dumbfounded for a moment, Princess Veronica lowered her head puzzled, examining the 2 silver wheels Leon handed her. What's this supposed to mean? A breakup fee? Slap. Granny. Now you have money. You were still thinking about the candy, while I almost lost my husband. After affectionately pinching the cheek of the little girl, as Princess Veronica was about to call out to Leon to ask why he suddenly left her behind, an old and hoarse voice suddenly came from the nearby window. Hello. Startled by the sound that resembled a sharp object scraping against glass, Princess Veronica turned towards it and saw an old lady with sagging skin and white hair reaching out her arms in her direction. Can I have Phoebe back? Ah, sure. Asterisk noticing the wary look in the other person's eyes, Princess Veronica thought she might have misunderstood something. To avoid being mistaken for a child kidnapper, she quickly set the little girl in her arms down. Asterisk. However, Princess Veronica had already hesitated slightly when she was handed 2 silver wheels earlier. And now, with the sudden appearance of the old lady, Leon, who was riding on a broomstick, had already flown far away. Forget it, I know his address, I can ask him later. Looking at Leon's retreating figure, Princess Veronica couldn't help but sigh. Today was just... Not only was there an assassination attempt by the rebels, but she also ended up getting married without any preparation, and the prince she chose seemed like an odd person. Especially just now, he had asked her to help look after a child one moment, and the next moment acted as if he forgot who she was, not only becoming polite and distant but even inexplicably giving her 2 silver wheels. What a peculiar person. But since Leon worked for the Purification Bureau, it's probably normal for him to be a bit weird. Shaking her head full of confusion, Princess Veronica smoothed out her skirt, squatted down, and opened the little girl's dirty, small black hand, placing a shiny silver wheel inside. She then smiled and patted the little girl's bottom. Here's the money. Go to your real grandma and let her buy you some candy. Grandma! Looking at the silver-white coin in her hand, the little girl tilted her head in surprise. Phoebe's grandma is already dead. Dead for many years. This child's grandma is dead? Then who was talking to me? Hearing the little girl's words, Princess Veronica's eyebrows furrowed slightly. Then she looked up at the old lady in the distant window and asked politely but cautiously, "May I ask, who are you to this child?" The old lady lifted her finely wrinkled brows, gave Princess Veronica a meaningful look, then smiled calmly and answered, "My name is Lucy. I'm Phoebe's sister." "Oh? You're Phoebe's sister?" Upon hearing this, Princess Veronica was momentarily taken aback, and her tightly furrowed brows did not relax, but instead tightened further. "Impossible. You look over 60, while little Phoebe seems to be only 5 or 6 years old. How could she be your sister?" "Lucy." As Princess Veronica furrowed her brow, starting to suspect the old lady might have some mental issues, the little girl suddenly ran happily towards the old lady. "Lucy, be good." Standing on tiptoes to pat the old lady's silver hair, the little girl lifted the coin to the old lady's eyes with her dirty little hand and affectionately imitated Princess Veronica's earlier words, saying, "If you call me sister, I'll buy you candy." Asterisk looking at the little girl full of innocence before her. A hint of sadness flashed in the old lady's eyes. Then she compliantly lowered her head so Phoebe wouldn't have to stand on tiptoes to touch the top of her head. Then, with a hoarse and eerie voice, she softly agreed, asterisk, "Sister, no matter what you become, you will always be my sister." Asterisk so. Turns out it's not the grandma who has mental issues, but the child who might be intellectually challenged. Asterisk. Noticing the sadness in the old lady's eyes, as well as her allowing little Phoebe to touch her head, Princess Veronica fell silent and chose not to further disturb this peculiar sisterhood, instead turning back towards the main hall. Some things are almost impossible to change, whether it's this little girl's innate foolishness or the deep-rooted greed in people's hearts. The only thing she could do was use the power that came with her title of princess to try to put shackles on those excessive greeds, so these inherently unfortunate could be slightly happier. And her marriage to Leon undoubtedly accelerated this progress, making everything worthwhile. What happened? Did I pass out? What just happened? Earl? Wake up, my lord. When Princess Veronica re-entered the hall where the ceremony of peerage was held, some of those who had fainted due to the heartbeat moment had already begun to regain consciousness. However, those waking up were mostly the younger or stronger attendees or the guards. People with higher status were usually older and physically weaker, so most remained unconscious, leaving no one to take charge of the situation, and the hall was in chaos. "Everyone, please listen to me." Asterisk observing the chaotic scene in the hall, Princess Veronica shook her head, then adjusted her shawl to cover the black handprint on her chest, and clapped her hands forcefully to attract everyone's attention, then instructed the awakened people asterisk. "The current priority is to wake people up. Vinsmoke family's members should go fetch a doctor, while other families should move their unconscious members upstairs. As for families where no one has awakened, the Ryan family should take responsibility." Also, check the condition of the unconscious people so that once the Vinsmoke family brings a doctor, priority can be given to those in more serious conditions. That seems like the right thing to do now. Asterisk after hearing Princess Veronica's instructions, the chaotic hall quieted down for a moment. Then people began to subconsciously follow suit. Their actions led more people to begin assisting, and the chaotic hall gradually became more orderly. Asterisk. However, even as they followed her instructions, most people couldn't help but have a peculiar question arise in their hearts. Asterisk, who is this woman issuing orders? Exactly. Asterisk. What? You encountered the rebels with control over an anomalous object again and nearly fell into their trap. After Leon finished recounting today's events, the red-haired director blinked her fox-like eyes in surprise, saying, "That's strange. Although the likelihood of encountering abnormalities typically increases with higher levels of corrosion once someone joins the Purification Bureau, haven't you been getting into accidents a bit too often?" "I do think it's odd too and suspect I might be under some curse." Leon nodded somewhat helplessly and said, "But the Black Goat said, assured as a great demon, that there's absolutely nothing abnormal about me. At least it couldn't detect any issues, so it suggested I come straight to you to find out what's really going on." "I can't see anything wrong with you either." The red-haired director shook his head and said, "Although I also had some sensory abilities, I was better at combat. This might involve the mysterious and the cursed. That sheep knew far more than I did. Also, even though that sheep was currently a bit weaker, it was indeed a well-informed great demon with an extremely long lifespan. In terms of knowledge in this area, there weren't many in the Purification Bureau who surpassed it. So, if even it couldn't see any problem, then you almost didn't need to consider the Bureau. Among those I could call for help, including the tourist director, there was barely anyone who could solve your problem." Wasn't that game over? After hearing what the red-haired director said, Ryan's heart sank halfway. Even though he had the Emma Remnant scripture to protect him, he could only learn Senior Emma's caution, not her undying body. If he kept encountering anomalies at this frequency, no matter how cautious he became, he would eventually fail like today when faced with an endless stream of anomalous objects. Without mentioning anything else, today's lead bullet alone was deadly. If that person shooting the slingshot from 3 kilometers away had raised his hand just a little while shooting, it wouldn't just be Ryan's scapula that shattered. "Are you thinking about the person who hurt you with the slingshot?" Seeing the somewhat fearful look in Ryan's eyes, the red-haired director guessed what he was thinking and offered some comfort. "Rest assured, you're carrying my hair on you. My hair was extremely sensitive to the scent of death. Once you were subjected to a potentially fatal attack, it would immediately intercept it. That person's ability might restrain you, but there was still a way to avoid it. Then, what if it wasn't immediately fatal, but something like poison, curses, bleeding that slowly kills me?" Knowing roughly the effects of slaughter blood hair, Ryan pondered for a moment and then added with some worry, "Besides that, what if the air around me was sucked dry, or if I was forcibly moved deep underwater or underground, or if I wasn't killed but aged by an anomalous object?" There were also abilities that didn't directly harm the body, targeting the soul, mind, or will. They could bypass slaughter blood hair's protection, right? Right? Watching Ryan quickly come up with 7 or 8 ways to bypass slaughter blood hair and successfully kill himself, the red-haired director clicked his tongue, feeling like he saw a plus version of Emma. To be honest, while being a little cautious was a good thing for a cleaner, Little Lion seemed to be deeply influenced by Emma. "What if, for a while, you stay in the Bureau?" Tilting his head in thought, the red-haired director suggested, "Those 2 investigators have already returned. If the investigation went without issues, the sheep's heart would be sent back in a couple of days. By then, you could visit the police department prison, get a warden position, and oversee those heinous death row prisoners. Although it couldn't match Emma's undying body, with something at the heart of ambition level to protect your life, you should be able to get through it without encountering extremely extreme anomalous abilities." Asterisk, yeah. And there was the heart. Asterisk. Hearing the director's reminder, Ryan felt reinvigorated, as a bit of hope flickered in the previously bleak future. although he wasn't like Bobby Lion who directly put the heart into his body, with the I am the Demon Golden Badge's blessing. Normally using the heart's life-saving ability was still feasible. As long as he didn't encounter overly extreme situations, he should be able to hold on until he truly became strong. Oh right, there was also the sheep stomach. Remembering another anomaly from the Sheep Awful series. Eager to significantly boost his strength to cope with his terribly bad luck, Ryan directly asked, "Director, how's the black goat's stomach? Can I apply to have it?" "The stomach? That isn't difficult, but not as quick as the heart. It will require some waiting." The red-haired director thought for a moment before replying. That sheep's stomach was self-found, not confiscated from a task. But as an anomaly submitted to our bureau after basic checks, we in the Virgo Bureau would have priority to apply for it. According to the headquarters application regulations, all you need to do was to submit an anomaly of the same basic level, or 3 anomalies of a lower level, and you could obtain it. As for the sheep stomach, the Leon value was about 8, but because it was part of a whole set of anomalies, the conversion requirement was significantly higher. Probably calculated at 10 Leon value, you still have any anomalies to exchange for it. I really do. After checking his current stock, Ryan tapped the small mirror he carried, instructing Young Ha to throw out the model small bed, sealed with the under-the-bed ghost hand. This item had a Leon value of 8.7, plus the 2.5 Leon value, heartbeat moment acquired today, which should be enough for exchange. Wait a minute. Touching the red hair around his neck, Ryan didn't immediately hand over the items. He hesitated a bit and then spoke. "Director, could I ask for a favor?" What favor?" "It's just, haven't I been targeted by those rebels lately? I'm worried they might come after my family, so I hope to get 3 strands of hair, 1 for each of my siblings." After explaining his request, without waiting for the director to respond, afraid she might refuse, Ryan quickly added, "Of course, I know the slaughter blood hair was a powerful anomaly with the number 013. Even just a few strands were very precious, and constantly drained your power, Director, so I wouldn't ask for them for free. If you can accept it, I am willing to use the 8.7 Leon value under the bed ghost hand to exchange for those 3 strands of hair. Is that okay? Exchanging under the bed ghost hand for 3 strands of your blood hair for your siblings?" Hearing Ryan's condition, seeing his sincere expression, the red-haired director instinctively blinked her fox eyes, then tapped her knuckles on the table and thoughtfully retorted, "If you exchanged my hair for under the bed ghost hand, what would you use to exchange for the sheep stomach? Nonetheless, anomalies with nearly 10 Leon value aren't easy to find." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." Ryan nodded earnestly and said, "Though anomalies with 10 Leon value are hard to find, they do exist. To exchange for Anna's safety, I believe it's completely worth it. Did family mean more to you than anything?" Staring into Ryan's eyes for a while, the red-haired director confirmed that he genuinely thought so. She couldn't help but blink, feeling a tinge of bitterness in her heart. Not only was she envious of those Ryan worried about, she also envied him for having someone who could worry about him. Asterisk how nice, not only you but Emma also still had family members to rely on. Considering my circumstances, I was destined to have nothing to do with family. So annoying. My mood was pleasant until you came along and suddenly made everything awkward. Asterisk. All right then, I'll accept it. Swallowing back the no need to exchange words that rose to her lips, she took the under-the-bed ghost hand and threw it into her drawer, which prompted her to glare at the joyous Ryan and teasingly issue a battle invitation full of malice. "Wanna drink a bit? Ha! If you drink with me wholeheartedly today, 3 hairs or even 30 would be fine. Was he not coming home today as well?" Unaware that Leon was risking his life in a sea of alcohol with a terrifying red-haired bad woman for the safety of himself and his siblings, Anna sighed quietly as the streetlights below the apartment turned on and Leon's figure was still nowhere to be seen. But as she stood up from the window, intending to clear the meal on the table she had purposely left, she suddenly heard some familiar footsteps in the stairway. Could it be, he's back? Hearing the highly identifiable heavy footsteps, the frail girl's expression lit up ever so slightly. After wiping her damp palms on her apron, she quickly ran over to the door to open it. However, just as she stood up, she realized that although the footsteps were very similar to Leon's, with the same heavy burden-like sound, the stride was noticeably smaller. So it wasn't my brother. Somewhat disappointed, Anna sighed and released her grip on the doorknob. Yet those footsteps that were so similar to Leon's headed straight toward her. And then the door was gently knocked. Knock, knock, knock. Someone at my house? Hearing the rather sudden knocking, Anna was briefly stunned and then cautiously inquired through the door, "Who are you looking for?" Hearing the voice from inside the door, the person outside paused and then replied warmly, "I'm looking for Leon Lane. Looking for my brother?" And that voice, a woman, although the woman's voice was very pleasant and carried a kind of convincing calmness, Anna couldn't help but instinctively become wary, almost subconsciously making an excuse. "He's already asleep, and it's very late now. You should come back tomorrow." Sensing her defensiveness, the woman outside pondered for a moment before leaning closer to the door and speaking softly. "You're Anna, right? Leon has mentioned you to me. Also, although there are men's shoes left deliberately outside, Leon's pair isn't here, so he hasn't come home yet, right? Don't worry, I'm not a bad person. I really came to find him." Caught lying straight through the door, Anna's face flushed slightly. She quickly turned the doorknob, feeling embarrassed, and apologized. "I'm sorry. My brother told me a few days ago to be more careful lately, saying that someone might be targeting our family, so I..." Looking at the beautiful woman in front of her, who appeared somewhat tired yet had an astonishingly good figure, Anna found her words stuck, both shocked and instinctively comparing her own measurements to the woman's voluptuous front. "It actually can be like this. This is unfair. It's okay. It's normal to be more cautious when I show up so late suddenly." Seeing that she had finally succeeded in tricking her way in, Princess Veronica, who could not afford a hotel and could not return to the royal palace with just a silver wheel from Leon, secretly breathed a sigh of relief. To have a place to stay tonight, she recalled the information she had read and tried to charm her with a warm and friendly smile. "Nice to meet you. My name is Veronica. As for my identity, I'm your brother's fiancée." "Oh? What did you say?" After hearing Princess Veronica's shocking introduction, the frail girl was left stunned as if struck by lightning, akin to a little duck in a daze. "This is impossible. He said he would spend his life. In any case, even without a blood relationship, I'm his most important sister. He would definitely tell me about something like marriage first. This woman must be lying." Anna was about to scold the woman in front of her, burning with a nameless anger, telling her not to lie, but she couldn't help but glance again at the woman's chest. Maybe it's not completely impossible? After all, she's really... Anna? Waiting for a long time without hearing any skepticism, Princess Veronica, whose prepared talking points were unusable, had to think on her feet and improvise, saying, "I know this news might be hard for you to accept, but I'm not lying to you. I really am your brother's fiancée. But he never told me anything, and he's been so busy. Where would he have had the time? It is indeed quite sudden." Holding the frail girl's sweaty hand, she led her affectionately inside as if she were really her sister-in-law and apologized genuinely. "Just this afternoon, in the main hall of the Ryan Manor estate, in front of all the guests attending the ennoblement ceremony, he proposed to me. Since we got along very well, I agreed after thinking about it. Because it all happened so abruptly, I didn't have a chance to inform you." "Oh, did Leon tell you where he was going today?" "He mentioned." Not noticing that Princess Veronica had deliberately left out dating duration and why no introduction to family issues, Anna correlated this sister-in-law's authenticity with whether Leon went to Ryan Manor today. Remembering Leon had indeed mentioned going to Ryan Manor for an ennoblement ceremony, and seeing the intelligence match on both sides, the last shred of doubt in her heart was completely dispelled due to the all-true if partly true mindset. With complexity in her eyes, she said, "So you really are. I really am your sister-in-law." Her nose, smudged slightly with soot, twitched as she caught a whiff of enticing food aroma. Starving since morning, the ravenous princess could no longer resist. Pulling the dazed Anna to sit by the dining table, she naturally lifted the dish covers and pushed a small plate toward Anna, concernedly asking, "You don't seem to be feeling well. Did you eat too little and feel unwell?" Ah! With her mind full of her brother getting married, the bride not being, her brother got married and hadn't told her, Anna illudedly replied, "I guess I didn't eat much." "Then eat a bit more. I'll eat with you." Naturally picking up a dish and placing it before her, Princess Veronica speared a broccoli piece for Anna and then elegantly cut herself a sizable slice of still warm fried fish, impeccably put it in her mouth. Chewing the fish at record-breaking speed and swallowing it whole, the princess, successfully conning her way to a meal, scooped mashed potatoes while persuading with concern, "Hurry and eat, you look so thin. If Leon returns and sees you didn't take care of yourself, he'll be upset for sure." "Ah, all right." Under Princess Veronica's earnest persuasion, Anna mechanically consumed 2 pieces of side broccoli and a few small carrot slices meant for soup ingredients. Looking at the 3 plates cleaned out by her sister-in-law, Anna finally noticed something was amiss. She gazed suspiciously at the woman opposite, who was contentedly wiping her mouth. This sister-in-law seemed to be here to swindle a meal, didn't she? "I'm sorry. I seem to be eating a bit too quickly." Noticing the suspicious look in Anna's eyes, Princess Veronica didn't panic after revealing a slip-up. Instead, she apologetically admitted, "Today has just been filled with unexpected events. First, your brother suddenly proposed to me, then we were attacked by the rebels. I haven't really eaten anything since morning, so I couldn't help myself just now. Please don't laugh at me." So that's how it is. Seeing the princess openly admit to scamming food and drink, and recalling her still elegant demeanor despite being a bit rushed, the suspicion faded slightly from Anna's eyes. She was drawn to a new topic thrown her way and asked with some concern, "So, how is Leon? Were you with him today? Since you were attacked by rebels, was he hurt?" "Don't worry. Although he ran into a tiny bit of trouble, his shoulder was hit by a small pebble, and I suspect the wound has probably already healed." After relaying Leon's condition, Princess Veronica couldn't help but smile at the clearly relieved yet frail girl before her. She then warmly took Anna's hand, saying with a close expression, "Honestly, when I saw you just now, it really gave me quite a scare." "Ha!" Upon hearing the sister-in-law's words, the frail girl couldn't help but shiver slightly, as if some little secret she harbored was seen through. She forced a smile and said, "Why? Of course, it's because of you." Without food or a place to stay, the princess, who urgently needed shelter, employed her political finesse, smiling as she praised, "Leon mentioned he had a sister around his age, but he never told me you were so beautiful." Watching the modestly dressed girl beside her, made slightly bashful by the compliment, lower her head shyly even in a plain white dress, Princess Veronica couldn't resist wrapping an arm around her slender waist, then sighed with 3 parts flattery and 7 parts sincerity. "Truly, so beautiful it makes me a bit jealous. Especially your waist. Oh my, really. On the day Leon and I have our wedding, you must be my bridesmaid. But you have to promise me not to dress too beautifully. Otherwise, the guests might not even look at me and will keep their eyes glued to you. I would be so embarrassed." It's not that exaggerated." Embarrassed by Princess Veronica's words, Anna's fair cheeks tinged with a blush, and she waved her hands to indicate she wasn't as good as the princess described her. Suppressing a small pang of envy, Anna looked at the beautiful, graceful, and impeccably mannered woman before her and sighed softly in her heart. She then reversed the grip on the princess's hand and said, "You, sis, you're the truly stunning one, and you have such a good figure. Even if I dressed beautifully, everyone's attention would definitely be on you. By the way, how old are you, sis?" "How old am I?" Hearing Anna's inquiry, the princess couldn't help her expression from stiffening slightly, quickly masking it with a vague smile. "I'm just a little bit older than your brother." A bit older? Her brother was 16 this year, a little bit older would be 17 or 18. 19? Anna thought for a moment, looking at the mature and graceful woman before her, eventually estimating upward a little and carefully asked, "Are you 20 years old, sis?" Asterisk, you mean, I look like someone not quite 20 yet. Asterisk. The question prompted the princess, a fair 28-years-old beauty, to feel a thrill of delight in her heart, and her smile became 100 times more genuine than before. Asterisk, not only was Leon's sister pretty and gentle, but she also spoke so well and cooked deliciously. Oh my, today I really did come to the right place. Asterisk. Yeah, about right, about right. Thick-skinned enough to accept Anna's guess with a broad grin, the princess continued chatting with her. With both sides eager to befriend each other, the conversation felt endless, lasting long into the night before ceasing. Oh my! Talking was so delightful that I accidentally lost track of time. Always glancing at the window from the corner of her eye, the princess saw that most streetlights had dimmed, estimating the last public carriage had departed. She promptly stood up with a regretful expression. I only meant to come see you all but ended up disturbing for so long. I'm really sorry, I should be going. Was it that late already? Looking outside at the dark streets, now pitch black with most streetlights turned off, Anna quickly stood up to stop her. Wait, don't. It's already so late. Sis, just stay the night. How could I impose? What's the big deal? You're going to marry into the family sooner or later, so staying one night early doesn't matter. But since Leon and I aren't actually married yet, staying over now seems a bit. It's fine. He's not here anyway. Besides, it's already so late. The last carriage might be gone, and if you encounter danger on the way, what would we do? Well, okay then. Unable to resist the future sister-in-law's enthusiastic invitation, the restrained princess agreed to stay. She ended up being shown into Leon's room for the night. Considering the clothes size compared to her own, Anna realized the princess certainly couldn't fit into hers, so she thoughtfully found a few of Leon's old clothes and left them by the bed. Picking up the old clothes and trying them on, Princess Veronica found they fit perfectly, and she smiled as she expressed her gratitude. Thank you. It's really been a bother today. You're welcome, after all, you are, well, it seems a bit late. Seeing the princess quietly stifle a small yawn, her eyelids also a bit heavy, Anna gently reminded her with a smile. Sister, you've had a long day, so I won't disturb your rest. My room is right next door, so call me if you need anything. Okay, thank you. After seeing Anna out of the room, Princess Veronica removed the ill-fitting dress and changed into Leon's old clothes. The sleepiness that had been on her face suddenly vanished. Silently slipping under the covers, she sighed softly, lying on Leon's small bed, staring steadily at the slightly worn-out ceiling above. Falling asleep was naturally impossible. The original princess had gathered all the conditions needed, just one step away from fulfilling her dream. But in the blink of an eye, she disappeared inexplicably from everyone's memory. She couldn't even go home and had to rely on the intelligence she had on Leon to get food and shelter, lest she end up on the streets. She now needed enough time to think, to ponder her own future, to find a way to retrieve everything she had lost. For Princess Veronica, tonight was destined to be a sleepless night. However, she was not the only one destined to be sleepless tonight, as Anna next door was the same. So, brother is really going to get married. Equally sleepless, lying in bed, the frail girl stared at the ceiling for a while before turning her head to glance in the direction of Leon's room. The sudden appearance of this beautiful sister-in-law completely shattered the reality Anna was most unwilling to face, that Leon would eventually have his own family. And once Leon had a family of his own, with his own wife and children, even if he still recognized her as his sister with no blood relation, they were destined not to be as close as they were now. At that time, Leon would likely move out, and the one keeping a warm meal for him, waiting under the light for his return, would be another woman, not herself, and besides, there was that strange man with a crying face. Recalling the mysterious man who visited a few days ago, Anna felt a chill run through her body, shrinking back under the covers. She then looked toward the next room with a deeply complex expression. If that man really took the photo and made Leon forget everything, she could have tried to find him, to see if they could become family in another way. But now, brother already had a fiancée, so could she still stay by his side? Would her home still continue to exist? With her heart full of melancholy and worry, after staring at Leon's room for a while, she thought of that woman, perfect to the point where she had no way, not even able to dislike her. In the tangled mess of her thoughts, a strong, peculiar notion faintly emerged. If I were her, how wonderful would that be? ZZZT. A rather strange sound came from the small mirror Leon used to store things. Young Ha, secretly gnawing on the sniper rifle barrel, jumped in surprise. Woof! What was that? Releasing the sniper rifle barrel from its mouth, Young Ha shook its little golden fur, turned to look at the pile of miscellaneous items Leon had thrown in, and carefully extended a paw to nudge around, finding the source of the strange noise. Woof woo! This photo. Something's not right, is it? Looking at the photo on the ground, gently trembling, the images on it shifting from 3 people to 1, Young Ha tilted its head in confusion, feeling it should inform Leon of this. Woof woof woof. Woof woof woof. Woof woof woof. Leon. Something's wrong, Leon. Take the mirror out of your pocket. However, without knowing why, Young Ha barked outside the small mirror for a long time, even nudged its nose out to push him, yet received no response. Growing anxious, Young Ha circled around before using its shiny black nose to sniff Leon's scent, following the constantly shifting boundary of the mirror world, finally finding an exit relatively close to Leon. Woof woo. Woof woo. So he was drunk. Humans are really unreliable. With its head poking out from the bottle of whiskey, Young Ha looked at Leon, lying on the table with glazed eyes, pouting speechlessly. It was about to try to bite him awake, to inform Leon about the photo exhibited strange changes in the mirror world, when, "What? Do you want a taste too?" The red-haired director, eyes hazy with intoxication, extended red lacquered fingertips to pinch Young Ha's scruff, lifting it from the bottle of whiskey with a chuckle and, ignoring its horrified expression, pressed a bottle to its mouth. "Don't be shy. It's my treat today. Whether human or dog, I guarantee you'll drink your fill. Woof. Woof woof woof. I don't at #UN%. ZZZT. Just as the unfortunate Young Ha bumped into the red-haired director's hand, forced to stand in for Leon as a little drinking buddy, the photo in the mirror world, ceaselessly making noises, finally began to quiet down. After the last strange writhing stopped, the family portrait on the photo completely disappeared, transforming into a voluptuous and charming young woman who looked exactly like Princess Veronica. Beep! Just as the family portrait on the photo turned into the smiling Princess Veronica, a somewhat piercing noise suddenly sounded, startling the old man dozing on the lounge chair nearby. What is this? Following the jarring noise, he looked down at the watch on his wrist and found all 6 hands moving. The old man, whose eyes were crescent-shaped and who naturally wore a smile, was suddenly ecstatic and widened his eyes. It's complete. The last condition was actually complete. He lifted his wrist to look at the last hand that had just started moving and saw that the number displayed was 0006, causing the naturally smiling old man, or rather the Aquarius director, to pause slightly. 0006? Wasn't this a failure? With a puzzled look on his face, he stood up from the lounge chair, walked to the table and sat down. The Aquarius director opened the desk drawer, took out a thick notebook labeled Complete Record of Experiment Numbers, and quickly began to search through it. 0006? 0006? Got it. He glanced casually at the records above, confirming it was the item he knew of. The Aquarius director furrowed his brows and pondered for a while, then picked up a pen, wrote a few lines, and tore the page regarding Experiment 6. He then turned to the back cover and clipped this record together with the other 5 records. Number 0006. Name, Anna Lane. Form, photo. Grant level, highest. Target ability, identity substitution, memory modification. Experiment details. Utilize the test subject's longing for a happy family to induce thoughts of substituting for others, and select the carrier as a photo representing the past, memories, and experiences, to purposefully cultivate the functional anomalous object with the ability to substitute identity and modify the past. Record 1. Failure. After learning of her parents' death, the test subject developed an extreme longing for family. But after being guided to see numerous happy families, she did not develop the impulse to replace the children of others. Instead, she longed even more to find her own parents. Note: it is judged that, because her usual family environment was relatively happy, the subject did not envy others' lives but rather the fact that others had real family members. It is recommended to abandon the cultivation of the substitution ability and instead induce her to reject reality and develop the idea of modifying the past. Record 2. Failure. Even witnessing the process of her parents' compensation being embezzled and being evicted from the house she grew up in, the subject still did not develop thoughts of rejecting reality, nor did she hope for her parents to truly resurrect. Note: it is judged that although the subject was very young, her will was quite firm, and she already understood the meaning of death, not believing her parents could resurrect. Also, her naturally kind nature meant she was not completely disillusioned with humanity. Thus, the inducement failed. Record 3. Failure. The subject activated the anomalous object, but the effect completely deviated from the target ability, shifting from identity substitution and past modification to regaining family members. Note: the experiment was temporarily shelved, awaiting the subject's adulthood and complete mental stability with no changes, before attempting to retrieve her and look for similar qualities in test subjects. Record 4. Completely failed. After a follow-up visit, the subject's mind was found to be not fully stable but had once personally destroyed the anomalous object she created, and wholeheartedly denied its significance. After being repeatedly provoked by my deliberate actions, her state showed no new changes, and the likelihood of success was nearly zero. Note: because the subject's family unintentionally joined the Purification Bureau's Virgin Branch, the photo anomalous object created by the subject was in the hands of the Scarlet Hair Lady, making retrieval extremely difficult. Record 5. Success? While preparing to sleep at night, the dream-seeking wristwatch was suddenly activated, suggesting the test subject's psyche suffered a tremendous impact, causing a shift in her innermost desires, leading to changes in the anomalous object. The new ability happened to meet the substitute and modify criteria. Bang! Ouch! Leon, who had turned over in his sleep and fallen off his desk, groaned in pain, feeling as if there were 3 worlds before his eyes, constantly shifting and alternating. The director, she really was a dangerous woman, in the literal sense. Recalling last night's disastrous drinking party and healing his broken ribs, Leon shivered with lingering fear. Although the director was a good supervisor who took care of him in every aspect, she was indeed an incorrigible drunk. Before, there was no one to drink with her, so she could only drink alone. But ever since she met him, who barely kept up with her drinking, it was like she opened a new door, and the further they drank, the more she enjoyed it. By the time she was fully high on alcohol, even if a dog wandered into the Purification Bureau, it could be dragged onto the table for a drink. Yesterday, he even pretended to be drunk twice but was miserably seen through, only to be pulled up for more drinks with her arm around his shoulder. But it wasn't all for nothing. Looking at the 3 red hairs wrapped around his right hand, the slightly pale Leon smiled reassuringly after the hangover. Anna and the others lived in Happiness Apartment, with a brawny old man patrolling with large scissors at night, and a blessing of protection from the apartment during the day. Plus, the hair he had asked from the director, they were completely protected this time, and he could be at ease. Ah! My head hurts. It seems like, while the drink was worth it, it was still a bit too much. After rubbing his throbbing temples, Leon sighed as he sat back down at his desk, looking at the still slightly shaking world before him. He silently vowed that the next time the director tried to drag him to drink, he would refuse without hesitation, just like Senior Emma. Although it was a bit like discarding the donkey after the millstone, taking the benefit and then not acknowledging it, but drinking with the director was really not something a human could endure. If I ever drink like that with her again, I'm a dog. Woof. Oh. Looking at the little husky lying belly up on his desk, also reeking of alcohol, Leon, whose vision was still a bit spinning, was stunned. He glanced speechlessly in the direction of the director's office. I was just speaking hypothetically, but didn't expect you actually managed to make even a dog drink 2 shots. Wake up! Wake up! Leon carefully flipped the little husky over, patting its back. The little husky, who had crashed the party, let out 2 puppyish alcoholic hiccups before it finally came to and opened its bleary, drunken eyes. Woof woo! Woof woo woof woo! That scared the hell out of me. Who would force even a dog to drink? The little husky complained weakly to Leon, then wriggled like a fat caterpillar, its tiny legs wobbling as it reached for the photo on the desk, pulling out what had caused it to spend a drunken night. Woof, woof woo. It's not what you initially put in. I'm going back to sleep for a while. Go on, go on. Watching the little husky stagger into the bottle and fall asleep without a sound, Leon rubbed his brow, then warmed his hands and placed them on his eyes for a moment. Once the world stopped spinning, he reached for the photo on the desk. Name. Hypothetical. Substitution. Modification. Appearance. A brand new photo showing a beautiful woman smiling at the viewer. If you continue staring at her, you'll unconsciously feel an inexplicable envy toward her. Ability. Substitute identity. Modify the world. Cost. None. File. One of the numerous anomalous objects created by the Aquarius director of the Purification Bureau to fulfill a wish, temporarily numbered as 0006. This anomalous object had once completely lost its original power due to the creator's resistance and denial. But after some impactful events, the creator's mindset began to evolve, generating new desires, allowing this broken anomalous object to be repaired. Evaluation. An extraordinarily powerful functional anomalous object capable of substituting anyone you desire without cost, even erasing all associated traces. Unfortunately, a person's heart is harder to manipulate than the entire world. Even if you can change the world, you can't change someone who doesn't love you. They only love the identity you've borrowed. If someone seeks happiness through it, they might find even greater disappointment. Perhaps this unrequited pain is the true cost of using it. Contamination value. 9. Due to your special relationship with this anomalous object's creator, you have full permissions to use it directly. Your contamination value has increased. The current contamination value is 4.1. This thing. Is that Anna's family photo? As he stared at the photo, which was almost another complete anomalous object, except for retaining its world-modifying ability, Leon furrowed his brows deeply. The creator's mindset evolved, generated new desires. Even if you could change the world, you can't change someone who doesn't love you. This explanation, exuding a certain pitiable vibe, along with the identity substitution ability and the somewhat familiar beautiful woman on the photo. Could it be Anna is in love? And she fell for this woman in the photo? To the point that it caused a change in the anomalous object. This? With the limited information and his hangover-clouded mind, Leon clutched his head and scratched at his hair, arriving at this possible conclusion. What the hell is happening? I just took a nap, and suddenly the whole situation changed. Knock, knock, knock. Just as Leon, full of existential crisis, was about to consult the black goat, trying to figure out if he had slept for a night or a week, there came a polite knock at the door. You're finally awake. Pushing the ajar door open slightly, seeing Leon was already off the desk, Jerry sighed in relief and then asked, Leon, someone came to file a report at the bureau today, claiming everyone suddenly forgot about her. I suspect she might have been attacked by some sort of abnormal ability. The director drank too much with you yesterday and hasn't woken up. There are no tasks for anyone else in the bureau except Emma and me, but neither of us is good at handling soul or mental-related situations. So if you're available, could you give me a hand? If there's any outcome, we'll distribute based on contribution size, and if it's soul-related stuff, you get it all. How about that? Well, I don't have any tasks at hand, but I think there might be some issues at home. Glancing at the photo on the desk, though Leon was tempted by the offer, considering the changes over at Anna's side, he decided to decline. How about this, Senior Jerry? I need to head home first, and if it turns out there's nothing major, I'll then, this person filing the report. Why do they seem familiar? Seeing the door open, the woman in the hallway looking at him curiously, Leon paused, then looked down at the photo on the desk again. Isn't this the same person?